Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I have another superb guest mentor for you. She's absolutely superb player, and well, let her introduce herself. So, your name, please.
Emily Dolan Davies. Hi.
Fantastic, fantastic to have you here. Right, okay. So, years playing.
Oh, you're going to make me feel old now. 25 years playing since I was 11 years old.
Ah, well, I can top that, so don't worry about it. Don't feel too bad. And okay, groups, stroke artists that you play for, past and present.
Okay, so most recently, the Voice Kids and Kim Wilde. In the past, I've played with The Darkness, Bryan Ferry, Tricky, Howard Jones, the Thompson Twins, and as I joke, basically anyone that will have me.
Yeah, that's my same mantra as well, really. it's,
It
it's a good way to be.
is, I think.
Brilliant. Okay, and are you self taught or schooled?
Oh, good question. So I am schooled in that I have always had one-on-one lessons since I literally started, and I would still consider myself that I still have lessons, although I have not had a lesson in probably about 3 years. But my teacher, Mike Dolbear, he will always be my teacher. But aside from that, no, just regular school. Didn't go to music school or anything like that, but knew that I wanted to be a drummer from like 13, 14.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. If you can absorb learning from everywhere. Personally, I I wasn't schooled, apart from GCSE music.
Yeah,
And
same.
yeah, and I think I had one or two mentors. My dad's a professional drummer, so just kind of watched him really. But yeah, I think
It's a pretty good one.
yeah, yeah. And at the end of the day, they all have their merits as well, with however you want to learn, really, don't they? So
Absolutely,
that's
I
cool.
100% agree. Yeah.
And yeah, the final kind of drummer stat was more of a question, really. What's your favourite thing about playing the drums?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's so many things, but I think it's the connection that you get from, first of all, the connection that I get through playing the drums, and just it's part of my soul. But then when you get to connect with other people through the drums, and whether that's the other musicians that are on stage with you, because you end up developing deep relationships and connections through your playing with them. But then aside from that, to the audience as well. So this sense of everyone in a situation, in a moment, being completely connected by a mutual experience, I find really satisfying and really, I don't know, profound, I guess.
Yeah, I think in a way all musicians love and respect that, don't they? Really, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind
I'd,
of
I'd like to think so.
yeah, yeah. I think the day that you lose that is the day you should probably step off the stage. Really, I
I,
think
I
that's
agree.
quite an important key ingredient. To be able to give off, especially us as drummers. Really, we play and there's quite a lot of energy in what we do. Even if it's the subtlety, there's still our heart and soul in it.
Oh yeah.
On slow numbers and stuff. So to be able to give out that energy and absorb it back from whether it's an audience or a couple of guys on stage, it's
Yeah,
it's
it's
key,
important.
really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I
You
think,
know.
yeah, it's just, I mean, that's just music, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
a mutual connection with everyone. And I think, yeah, like you say, there's a lot of gravitas with that for me, and
mm.
a lot, like, that is the reason that I play, is that connection. And like you say, if I lose that, there's no point. Literally no point.
Yeah,
I just love it.
yeah, and I think it can work both ways. You can have a stage full of musicians that are absolutely into it and loving it, but if it's not the right audience out there, then there could be a bit of
Yeah.
a disconnect, and vice versa. You could have you'd be playing the biggest stadium in the world with all the most adoring fans, but if someone on that stage is just plodding along and doing it
Yeah.
just 110% just for the money, then you never.
Yeah.
It's like getting blood from a stone, there, isn't it?
Totally. I've definitely had both ends of that scale and everything in between. So yeah, and it
Yeah.
is yeah, it's not nice either way of those versions of the situation. But when you do find a situation in a group of people where you get to have that lovely synergy in the middle, it's so special. And it's probably not actually as common as people would think, like to have everything feel like it's in that same direction. You might get, towards that center point, but yeah, for me at least, in my experience, it's I can remember the moments where I've been like, oh my God, we're doing something here. Like, this is a thing. Like, this really is truly, we're all right here. And yeah, it's interesting. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah. And it's quite a lot of things that I speak to, or have spoken to previous students or people I've mentored before, is when they get that, that nervousness about, I don't know, going in and doing an audition or something like that, or even being on stage and going, oh, well, it felt awkward, or the lead person I'm playing with or for, was not happy that night. And, it's like everybody has good and bad days. But, of course, the one thing that I usually say especially for auditions and stuff, when people have not got it, and they're like, I've played my heart out, I learned that stuff perfectly. And I don't understand what went wrong. Sometimes it's kind of like, well, understand you as a person as well, because it might just, that vibe, or, that personal connection then might not have just worked. You could be the best drummer in the world or best musician in the world, but if you're not going to get on.
There's so many other factors that are just either out of your control, or like you say, if the personalities don't click, or personalities with someone else clicked really well. Because we've all seen gigs where there's musicians on it where maybe they're not the best musician in the world, but on the road that they're great to be around, like you want them around, they're a vibe, or maybe they perform really well on stage, so they really bring an amazing element to the show that isn't just about the notes that they're playing. So there's so many other factors, and that's not about being good enough or not good enough. It's more about, are you just the right person for the job? And I often say, imagine you did end up on and I've had this where I've ended up on gigs with people, and personality wise we haven't fit at all, and then you're stuck on the road for 3 months and you're like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. I'm doing what I love, but I'm not enjoying this at all. And actually, I truly believe that, say I don't get an audition, I just think, cool, all right, well, I choose to believe that wasn't right for me right now, and that's okay, so I move on. You know what I mean? Rather than putting too much onus on, I wasn't good enough. Or obviously, if things actually, if I physically notice that there was something that I couldn't do, fair enough, I'll look at that, I'll work on that, and there's always something to be working on. But yeah, I think there needs to be more onus on the fact that it is about compatibility. It's like a relationship, isn't it, really? It's just like, it's not about good or bad, it's just, are we compatible musically, personality wise? And often in an audition situation, that's like 20 minutes in a room, it's hard to get a read on people. So I wouldn't sort of beat yourself up too much about it if your personality didn't shine through. I'm terrible in auditions. I get so nervous, and I can't, either I talk too much or I don't say anything. There's no fun middle ground. I get weird. And there are so many people that can attest to me just getting weird. And then, 3 months down the line, I can finally relax, and I'm like, and then we get on great. And it's like, oh yeah, sorry, this is who I actually am. Sorry about the last 3 months. I've just been filled with anxiety. So yeah, there's that.
But yeah, the thing is that if you're like that as a person, then you just have to own it, don't you? You just have to it's part of your personality. Saying on that about the anxiousness and the anxiety, I did a Q&A session for a place in Gloucestershire not so long ago, and this really young lad simply just said, how do you deal with nerves and stage fright and anxiety? And I made a joke of it to begin with. I just said, well, you don't. and kind of there was a few laughs and a few oohs. And then I went, let me elaborate on that. So what I mean is that you own it. You own your own mentality. And as long as you've put in what you need to do for that gig, that audition, that first meeting, that whatever it is, then you just have to take those stage frights and turn it into a form of energy for yourself.
This is it. I have a big thing about like noticing those things like anxiety, for instance. And first of all, personally, I take it as a clue, like, okay, I'm obviously feeling uncomfortable about something. So maybe there's something I don't feel like I'm together enough on or whatever. But what that consequently means is that I often overdo it. I over prepare all the time. And although that, you know, I may have anxiety. By the way, I never get stage fright because I over prepare so much and I think about every eventuality. And whilst that's my thing to bear and that is part of my personality, what it also means, a really great byproduct, is that I know that I will always do a great job. No matter what I'm doing, I will know everything inside and out. I will have thought about everything that could probably go wrong and already have a plan in my head of what I will do if that thing goes wrong, which of course it doesn't, or very rarely. And I know that people can trust me because of that. And I definitely have the reputation that if I come into your gig, you don't need to worry about me. Like, everything will be done. I will not just know all my parts and like I will know every structure of every song. I will probably know most of the lyrics too, because it's just what I love about music. And I will clock when people don't know what they're doing, which drives me insane, by the way, but it's fine. Like, people are wired differently. So like you say, it's about leaning into those things that may feel uncomfortable, like anxiety, and think, right, how can I use this positively? How can I minimize the anxiety for myself, but how can I transfer it into a skill that will make me better at what I do? And I do believe that there's a yin and yang to everything. There's balance to everything. You know, those horrible anxiety feelings will bring something positive too. And it's just about finding what that is for you, I think. And everyone's different as well. So it is really a personal journey of just like sitting down with yourself and going, right, I'm not happy about this, how I'm reacting to this. How can I make it better? And not just that, how can I make it a positive thing about my life? And it doesn't make it disappear, not at all. But it makes you, I don't know, I weirdly cherish my crazy neuroticism, basically, because I know that it's what makes me good at what I do. And it's part of the reason that I get hired to do what I do. So in a way, I'm grateful for it, which probably seems absolutely mad. But there you go.
I don't think it's mad at all. It just says to me that the preparation is key.
Yes, for sure.
You know, I partly highly admire those that go, yeah, I'll have a look at it, and then they're just on it on the night.
I often find as guitarists have a very in the moment way of existing as a whole. And I often look at them and just go, I wish I was a bit more like you. I wish I was a bit more cool. All right, let's just see what comes up. Let's see what happens. Whereas I'm like, no, meticulous, every little possibility, you know, it's just, it's so funny. So yeah, I understand, like, yeah, I do often have the same reaction. Like, oh, I wish I had a bit of that.
Having said that, though, to stand up for us drummers in that kind of sense, the fact that we're usually the grounding foundation of a band, you know, alongside bass and that, I'd like to think that the preparation is key is quite important for us, really, especially if you then get put in. Because even if you're, I do believe, even if you're not the MD of the show, it's useful to literally know what's coming next from the MD anyway.
100%. Like, this is going to sound awful, but I don't trust many people, like musically, possibly in life as well, which is maybe that's something to talk to a trained therapist about. But therefore, I know that I'm going to feel more comfortable if I have the knowledge that I need for me to do my job. And often I'm not comfortable with turning to someone else to give me that answer. I need to have it inside of me, because at the end of the day, I'm the only one that I can rely on. And if the MD, for instance, let's say the MD is running track and the track goes down and they're trying to deal with that, the last thing that they want either is someone else going, whoa, what's going on? Or like to create more chaos. So if you can, the way that I think of it, and it's often happened to me, where say the MD is busy dealing with something, people will turn to me because they know, again, like I say, they can trust me. I know what's going on. Of course I do. I've even had singers like artists turn around to me because I'm singing the lyrics and they've forgotten what they're meant to be singing. And it's just like, I'm lucky that, like I say, the way that I do things and the level that I feel comfortable on a gig helps other people, which again is great. And I'm happy with people feeling like they can rely on me, because I know I can rely on myself also. So I'm like, cool. And, you know, obviously it's taken a long time to get to that point of feeling confident that, no, like, it's cool if half the band go down, we can still finish the song or the gig or whatever it needs to be. And, you know, I've proven that to myself time and time again. And there's something nice about having that confidence of, like, there are many things I'm insecure about in my playing and just in life, but I do know that when it comes to doing a job and knowing a song and being able to hold people together and feel confident, I can do that. I know I can do that. It's it's one of the things I can do.
For me, I find that my best way of prepare for everything is a good old digital set list nowadays. I haven't got much paper, and I over obsessively fill it with cheat sheets stuff.
Nice.
So to some people, I don't know whether I've got one on here. I don't know whether it will come across on camera.
I'm fascinated by people's like charts and cheat sheets and roadmaps.
I'm gonna feel really embarrassed now, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So
that's the motto of my life. It's like, I'm about to be really vulnerable. Let's go for it.
So I don't know how well this is going to be seen. So, right, let's have a look. So as an example, let's see if we can see this at all. I don't know if I can get it much closer.
Oh yeah, I can.
And I just fill it with scribbles, hieroglyphics, the works.
Love it.
So even just that one at the top in the corner there is Queen's "Somebody to Love."
Nice.
And it's only because this particular show is fully sync to track, and they use Video Wall for
you've got time code going as well.
And their click tracks break down into they have certain gaps where they don't actually click it.
Oh,
so you're sitting and you go in, okay, and then I've got 4 in before that bit there.
Cool.
So
Okay,
for me,
I appreciate your notes, because even you just saying it, I'm like, what do you mean there's just like silent? Like, what do you mean? So if I know I'm waiting for the 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, cool. That's
great. So that it's like, you know, so literally just things like I've got random, like I showed this to the MD and they were like, what kind of crap are you writing out? I was like, well, I understand it. And you know, a prime example of that is this. It says ad lib break 1, 2 fill. And that is literally just me telling me.
1, 2.
That's it. Because I know full well that the lead singer is talking crap for a couple of minutes.
So you're just waiting for your thing.
And I'm just waiting for that time code to kick in.
I would have, on something like that, you describing that, I would literally probably have to write, don't panic. Like, there will be no click, don't panic, like, just to remind myself, you know, because I've had a gig where my ears have gone down at the very top of the show, and I had nothing, and it was a big show, and it was just the most horrendous thing in the world. It was literally like, you know, when you have those stress dreams, it was like that, but worse. And I had to play for the first 2 songs of this set. First of all, nobody realized what was going on, and I was like, my ears are down. So I was playing, but I was hearing the slap back. It was a big festival, so obviously I'm playing out of time, and like everyone's looking around at me like going, what is going on? So at least I got their attention by playing so horrendously. But I was like, I don't have ears, I can't do anything. And the poor keys player spent the next 2 songs playing whilst also using her left hand just to like click out. So I was playing to her hand, just going like this, and I was like, this is literally my worst nightmare. It's my worst nightmare. But anyway, they got it sorted after a couple of songs, but it was all my worst nightmares coming true all at once. It's pretty horrendous. I don't even remember. Because we're talking about not having click. Yes. So not having click is a real phobia of mine now, where I'm like, okay, if there's meant to not be click, I need to write it down. And I have that on the Voice Kids as well. Like, I'm like, right, the click stops here, so don't panic.
Because on that particular show, I've had a full click dropout as well, and then but not dropping out to anyone else. So
Oh,
they're looking over,
yeah.
going,
What's wrong with you?
and I just look at the bass player and go, no click. He's
It's
going,
just the worst. Oh, it's moments like that. You know, we were talking about connection, and you have these beautiful moments of connection and music and audiences. There's a different kind of connection when stuff goes wrong, and when the people that you basically, I find that the people that you can rely on present themselves very quickly, and you suddenly become aware of, like, I have this thing when I work with anyone, we're instant family, whether you like it or not. Like, I will protect you. Like, that's it. That's just how I roll. But when stuff goes wrong, that's when you truly see your family members that will help you, and that will have that same thing of, like, I will do anything. We're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. Like, I love you. Let's do this. And yeah, that was definitely one of those moments where I was like, oh God, I love you so much. Thank you so much. Like, it was just unbelievable. But yeah, it's when the chips are down, that's when people reveal themselves, for sure, I think.
Yeah, and it is a nerve-wracking moment, and it's impressive to try and sync that in. Like, it's impossible when you've got slapback from a big venue, isn't it?
It's just, like I said, literal worst nightmare. Can I just say to your students as well, that has happened only twice in 25 years of playing, so this is not a regular occurrence. It was just very bad luck, so please don't think that every gig is like that. Like 99.9% of the time it all goes smoothly, and it's wonderful.
But that also comes back to what you're saying about being prepared, because it's also vital to know that can happen. You don't want to go onto every gig thinking it's going to happen, but it's useful to have that arsenal of tools to go, if that happens, I know I can look at so and so over there, or I've got so and so over there, or I know. I think I did it. I think I managed to, before they noticed on that one, I managed to catch up because I recognised a video cue off the screen.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, and the drum kit was angled, so I could see the screen, and I knew that when there was this little bum wiggle of the lead guy that was on stage, I knew that's a certain push. So I was like, oh, right, I'm there. Okay, I don't know how long I can keep this in for now, but I know it's dirt, and I'm back. Okay. Right.
Oh, you're hilarious. Oh, I love that. So when I was playing with Howard Jones, we had a lot of video going on as well. Now, we had the reverse problem. That was a double drummer gig. So, and we also were angled, so we could see the screen. However, there's one song that he played, and I can't even remember what it's called right now, which is terrible. And I apologize if there's any Howard Jones fans listening right now. My memory is shocking. Anyway, in this song, there's a video of Howard playing a snare drum like this, but it's completely out of time with the actual song. So both me and the other drummer, Johnny, would have to actually actively look away from the screen and close our eyes just at the beginning of this song, because it's so distracting, and it's just like, no, I refuse to look at what is happening right now. I'm just going to play my part. Like, it's just, so yeah, the video can be a blessing and a curse, for sure. It needs to be done well.
Yeah, it can seriously put you off, can't it? If it's like that.
It's just, it's weird, the things you realize that are detrimental to a performance, like, that you don't realize until they happen. You're like, whoa, so turns out I can't be watching something with a different timing to what I'm playing. That's interesting that I found that out about myself today. So yeah, funny.
Or I think the worst one I had, we'll change the subject soon, but one final thing about that, the worst thing that I had was playing a big place out in Budapest, I think it was, and the gig I was on was a hard rock gig, but it was a silent stage apart from acoustic drum kit.
Right.
And my ears went down. So I couldn't even react off of a live guitar amp anywhere near me.
Yep. Oh, that's why I forgot to mention about when my ears went. It was a silent stage.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was what the issue was.
Yeah, it
was just like, I have nothing apart from the slapback.
Yeah.
So I didn't have. It's horrendous.
Yeah, I completely empathise with that. And,
by the way, also this gig that I was on, it was the first. So it was the Thompson Twins guy, Tom Bailey. It was his first gig back in 32 years, and it was televised. So that's fun. So it exists only in the States. I occasionally get messages from people going, oh yeah, I just saw your thing at Henley Rewind with Tom Bailey, and instantly I'm like, oh my god, kill me, absolutely kill me.
Does anyone ever notice though? Has anyone ever gone, oh, What happened there?
Well, I don't know, because I haven't seen it, so I don't know whether they managed to do some clever editing. God knows how they would manage it. But if not, everyone's been very kind if it is on there, because I don't think anyone's mentioned it, apart from obviously everyone that was on stage and everyone was at the gig that I still get joked about. Like, it's just, it wasn't my fault. And they're like, oh, we all thought that you shat the bed. And I was like, no. Come on. They rip it out of me for it still. And that was, when was that? 2014. So yeah, almost 10 years ago. That's mental, but these things happen, I guess. It's all right. Nobody died.
Yeah, you are not alone. Not alone in that scenario. Sure. Yeah. But the key thing to pull out of this as well, though, is you figure it out, don't you? You don't just stop in a heap. You make it work.
I think that's my motto to everyone who wants to be in any creative industry, is just make it work. Just, there will always be obstacles, and whether that's when you're on a gig, whether that's trying to make it your career, or there's a billion things that will come up, and nothing ever will be perfect. But if you can just make whatever it is work with what you've got, you're already like leveling yourself up something chronic, because it's so easy to make excuses in this life, but it's a lot harder and to just go with it and just, like I say, make it work. And that's always been my ethos, and it's, I don't know, it's served me really well, I think. So yeah.
The one thing that's always stuck in my mind was as a drum tech that I had when I used to do Blues Brothers theatre tour. And he's just a very relaxed American. And everybody were running around like blue-ass flies. And you'd never see him go any faster than a snail pace walk. But everything was always done early. It was with him. It was just like, but you never see him rush. And it's like everyone else is rushing around, and he's still got kit up before anyone else and all this. And whenever there was a problem, he'd just watch everyone running around, and he'd look at you and he'd just go, "Gig's going to happen, man."
It's true.
And that's it.
True. That's it.
And that's all he'd ever say. He wouldn't get into the conversation. He wouldn't be like brainstorming the problem or anything. That he'll just wait, and then he'll just, "Gig's gonna happen, man." You just see everyone else kind of go, "Yeah."
You're right. Yeah, that is wisdom. That is wisdom, and that is a life on the road. That is that reaction.
And it really is. Yeah,
I would love.
And you never see him, but you were never turning around going, "Oh, why hasn't he not done that?" It's just been done.
No, it's done before you even realize it needed to be done. They are the best techs, and I agree. I hope one day I will have that level of wisdom. I am not there yet. I still panic. I still, I'm trying to find all the solutions before they've happened. But yeah, that dude sounds like a dude. May more of us be more like him.
He's more relaxed than I think of anyone else I've ever met. I don't think I'd. Well, I'm almost 40 now. I'm never going to be that relaxed. I think it's too late. Missed the boat.
You never know.
Yeah. Unless I get into it. Oh well, kind of.
There we go.
Yeah, but no. I'm too. Yeah, like you say, the preparation is king for me. Everything from cheat sheets to knowing where all my kit is and everything. And a few people laugh at me because even my basic kit, if I did just function gigs and stuff, is all production label cased. With everything that's in it.
I feel like I'm like speaking to a kindred spirit here, because I'm exactly the same. It's just like, why wouldn't I have labeled up all my gear? Like, why would you not do that? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But I'm with you.
That's it. My only day off yesterday, and I spent it outside labeling loads of hard cases with new labels. Like 2 towels, 1 black, 1 white.
Love it.
Tama drum stool. I did like 5 cases like that. I was like, oh god. Okay, but at least I know where everything is.
Well, this is it, and I often find myself thanking my former self in things like labeling cables, for instance. I've got so many cables here, but I just spent an afternoon with my label maker, and I just got it done. I know once it's done, it's done, and I don't need to think about it. And there's stuff in this rack, for instance, that I probably won't even look at for 2 or 3 years, but I know that when I need to find out where that cable goes, I'll already know because there'll be a lovely label and I'll go, thank you, Emily, from 3 years ago. You rule. Like, yes, that's awesome. So yeah, it pays off in the end, but it's just a little bit of work up front. It's nice that you were able to do it outside though, like in the sun or whatever.
I was in a bit of a dash because it was threatening to rain. So some of the labels I think are a little bit like really bad handwriting now.
It's all right, as long as you know what it is, then it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, I guess we should probably answer a question or two.
Sounds good.
So let's have a look. Right, so... Oh, okay, nice simple one to start off with. So this question is from David Keel.
Hey, David Keel.
He is from Dallas, Texas.
Oh, nice.
And nice and simple, he's just literally asked, what are your influences?
Crikey, so that's an easy one. There's so many. So I'll go with drummers because obviously it's the most logical thing to go with. So as a general rule, I just love drummers that have great feel. They play for the song because that is my whole life in drums is informed by songs and what I play and all that. It's where my heart lies, you know, good lyrics, good storytelling. So in terms of my personal influences, it would be people like Levon Helm from the band. It's people like Al Jackson Jr. used to play with Al Green. Who else? Like Steve Jordan, Steve Gadd, James Gadson, Bill Withers, Al Palmer, Brian Blade, like just people with just the most incredible feel, and they bring the music together, and it's like they just hug it, and when you listen to them play, it just feels so warm and it hits me in the stomach and in the heart. And you know, I say often, it's not actually that often, but I remember all the moments that I've had when I've seen gigs. It's often in tiny venues with, you know, they're just a bunch of musicians like happening to come together, where I will often find myself almost winded by how stunning a drummer is playing, and all they're playing is just get, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the most incredible thing I've ever heard in my life. And yeah, in fact, the last time that happened, I remember I was at a club called the 606 in Chelsea, which is in southwest London, and it was Ian Thomas, and I just was he killed me that night. I almost was crying. It was so beautiful. And there weren't millions of notes going on. I'm not like, it's impressive, all that kind of like, you know, just raging around the kit. That's fine. And some people love that. And that's their thing. But honestly, where my heart is, it's just that. That is life for me. That is it. That is the reason that I do what I do. That is what I love to do the most. And any drummer that can do that beautifully is one of my favorite influences. So that was a long answer to a very short question. So yeah, sorry about that, David.
No, not at all. That's what we're here for. You know, I'd rather go more in depth than less. Really, give them a real, you know, sink their teeth into, you know, the answers really. But yeah, I kind of I agree with that. I think I ended up saying this on when I spoke to Rob last time, but Modern Drummer Festival 2015, Chad Smith was on it. I think there's a DVD.
Legendary.
About. And so I think he was, and then you had Jojo Mayer, and then what's another show? But you had a load of metalers, and then you had Jojo Mayer, so more of a technical player, and then you had Keith Carlock. Yeah. So he's doing all the Steely Dan stuff. So you got all of these ridiculously technical players, you know, and you got Jojo Mayer doing his usual thing of, you know, I can do this with one hand and show off in a drum store type thing. And Chad Smith comes on after all that, because it's him and then Ian Pace that's headlining it. Yeah. And he sits down behind the kit and he plays 3 minutes of just doom, da, doom, da, doom, that doesn't move.
Yeah.
And you can first, like, it's a weird response from the audience. They're like, what's going on? And then like rip roared.
But then they get it.
Yeah. And he got up and he walked to the mic and he went, that's how you get a gig.
Yes, yes.
And that was
So
it.
I think I had that DVD because I seem to remember watching that and
Yeah.
just being so floored by not just what he was doing, but to have the gall to do that at Modern Drummer Festival. I was like, I wish I had a tenth of, I mean, at that time, obviously, I was a lot younger, but the confidence in myself, my playing, what I do to get up and do that. I don't now, there's no way in a million years I'd be able to get up at something like that and do that. But in my soul, in my heart, in my soul, that's it. That's it for me. Like, that is, I say to everyone, I am not the greatest drummer in the world, not by a long shot, but I know how to do my job. And those are two slightly different things. Obviously, there are two circles and there is a crossover, but it's not about being a Jojo Mayer, for instance. I always remember seeing Thomas Lang when I was younger, and obviously he's so technical, and I love Thomas to pieces. But I very quickly realized that, okay, like Thomas, I think, played with, I can't remember who it was, the guy who did Rock Me Amadeus. He played with him for a while. But then I was also talking to other drummers who were playing multiple pop gigs, and they, that was their bread and butter. And I was like, that's interesting. So he's playing like that, but they're playing like that. So I think I'd rather go down the simpler route because they're working. And my whole goal since I was a kid was I just want to earn a living playing the drums. And it very quickly became apparent that I need to be working on groove, playing simply, being solid, being confident, playing to clicks, playing to track, like all those things. And it just never even entered my mind that I should be learning how to play really fast and all the notes. And you know what I mean? Luckily, it never really got me anyway. So I wasn't fighting my natural inclination because I've always just loved songs. But yeah, it's an interesting realization that actually the amount of value, and I don't mean monetarily, but the amount of value in the simplicity and confidence of just being able to go get. And Chad Smith was the first person that I saw that did that so brazenly, and I was like, yes, I love this. This is, yes, I subscribe to this way of thinking.
Yeah, when I was a lot younger, I went and saw Thomas Lang when I was young, and who else was it? I can't remember who it was. But those types of players would almost make me feel like, oh well, what's the point?
All right, yeah.
It's like it used to get that kind of, oh, okay, well, I can't do that, so. And then seeing the Chad Smith one was like, oh wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. If he
it's
can
all
do
okay.
it, yeah, it's all fine. And then, oh my God, I'm terrible with names.
Sorry, me too.
But even just other drummers, a good example of so it's got good groove and everything. But the drummer Henry Spinetti.
Oh, I know that name.
So famous for Eric Clapton.
Okay.
And so was on a lot of the records and also did a lot of the touring. But I think Steve Jordan does a lot of the stateside stuff now.
He does, yeah.
Henry is infamous for working for Clapton, basically.
Right.
And I know Henry because he's a family friend. And only kind of got to know him later stages, last couple of years. And we always go to a specific drum show in Coventry, a vintage drum show.
Yes, I've been to it at Bulls Hall, isn't it, or something like
that? What's it called? So it's Simon John's Vintage Drum show.
It's just in a funny place, the actual building. And I can't remember what, but I've been there a couple of times. I loved it.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
I spent too much money. I was looking at Heyman kits and I just became completely like, and all the lovely Ludwigs that are kicking about. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry, please carry on.
So that's myself and Henry and a couple of others. That's our one and only pilgrimage every year.
Love that.
And the thing that is so humblingly brilliant about Henry is that he is just feel personified. And as you get to know him, it's even more humbling because he self-admits, he doesn't know, if you're going, oh yeah, it's a paradiddle and this and that and the other. He's like, I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
I can't. I sit down. This is what I play, and you're like, oh yeah, well that's that, Henry. Oh,
Okay.
Just play it, and and the fact that this man is a very good success, and it was simply because he was like, I just want to play drums, and I would like to do it for a living. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Fully, fully self-taught, right time, right places. Plays for Eric Clapton. Thank you very much.
I mean, that's it. That says everything. I had a similar experience with Clem Catini. So he, again, similar thing. He is feel personified, and he's one of those people. The second he sits down to play, it's just like, oh, this is the reason we're all playing drums. It's to play like you, and it's just simple, and it's perfect, and it just sits exactly where it should be, and it's so beautiful. But again, similar to Henry, he's just like, oh, I don't know what I'm playing. I'm just playing, like I'm just playing the song. Like that's just, and I'm like, yes, of course you are, Clem, because you're an absolute legend, and I adore you. And so I totally get that.
Such a lovely man as well, Clem. I've met him.
One of my favorite people on the planet. Him and Brian Bennett, like they're like a double act. They fill my heart with joy. I love them to pieces. Just wonderful humans.
If anyone watching this doesn't know who these people are, they are simply legends, and you need to go and check them out.
Yes, go look them up.
You can look at all of the newbies and or even some of the older, more famous drummers that do this, that, and the other. But these particular people are kind of almost, I suppose, maybe I could say that it's yours and my generational kind of legends, and earlier, of course. But
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say that probably our generation is sort of not the last generation to appreciate them, but they are a big part of our sort of upbringing and background, and it's just they're part of the architecture and the foundation of what we play as drums now. I would say. 100%. So if we can get some of your younger watchers, viewers, listeners to go and check them out, so we can keep their legendary status going, because they really have done so much for music and for drums. And and Henry as well. I need to get to know Henry more. I feel terrible that I don't know enough yet. I will, though. Don't you worry.
Well, you'll have to turn up. You'll have to go to the drum fair and see if you can meet him as well.
I know it's September, isn't it? Is it September? Yeah, I'll have a look at that if I'm around. I'll head down. Up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, shall we get in another question? Let's see what we got. Okay. So our second question is from Joe Jr. And Joe is from Nigeria.
Nice.
And he said, what has kept you going despite the challenges you've faced as a drummer?
Oh, crikey, O'Reilly. What has kept me going? Well, I was lucky in that when I first started playing, it made so much sense to me that instantly I was like, I have to be good at this. I have to, because I just fell deeply in love straight away. So for me, usually the sort of setbacks and the challenges and stuff like that have never come from the drums themselves, if that makes sense, or from playing the drums themselves. So often it would be, going to an audition, not getting it, or not having much work in the books, or, things like that. So my first thing would always be to go back to actually physically playing the drums and just reconnecting with my instrument, just knowing that this is where my heart is. And that's actually all that is important. But then secondary to that, depending on what it is, I don't know what will keep me going. Usually it's just this knowing that I cannot do anything else in this life. Like this is part of my being. It's part of my DNA at this point. And, if I am struggling, I would sort of and I still do, reach out to other musicians or other drummers and just be like, I'm really struggling. I remember distinctly so many times sort of having a diary with no work, and I would email people that I look up to and have known for many years. I mean, I've been going to drum shows since I was 12 years old. And I've been making friends with drummers since then. So a lot of drummers have really seen me grow up in this industry. So I'd email people for instance, Jeff Dugmore, Ralph Salmons, Jerry Brown, or Carl Brazil, Ash Sohn, and just be like, look, my diary is empty. I am struggling. I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know what I should be concentrating on. I feel completely lost. And they'd always email back or give me a call or go, right, let's go for a coffee. And they'd be like, look, it's okay. This is what this job is. Like, you're doing all the right things. And unfortunately, this is just part of it. I've been exactly where you are right now. I will be where you are right now again. And if you can make it through these points, they're the ones that matter. So I started sort of telling myself when things do get rough, and they still do, I think it's just the nature of being a creative, having a creative career path. Whenever things get tough and I feel like I'm struggling, I think, right, everybody goes through this. The difference is that it's the people that make it through this moment right now that get to carry on doing what they love. And that's the difference in my head. And whether that's true or not is irrelevant. But I believe that if I can get through the tough bits, it means that my career will carry on. I will become more resilient. Like, more opportunities will present themselves. And sort of, I have these set of beliefs that, as I say, I choose to believe that they're correct because it just spurs me on. And then I'll look retrospectively also at times where I felt similarly, or I have felt a bit hopeless about stuff or whatever, and often it's right on the cusp of something happening, and of course I'll take action to try and accelerate that, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes time just needs to happen, and things come in from the strangest places. Like, I'll have phone calls from someone that I've worked with for 10 years and they're like, oh yeah, can you come do this tour next week? And I'm like, I just had a completely free year with no work in it, and now I have 6 months of touring, and literally in one phone call. And it's just like, it's crazy how it happens. So I also remind myself that everything can change in a phone call, and this world is crazy. Life is mad. Like, life is chaos, and to try and sort of lean into that a little bit and trust that it will be okay, because it always works out. And like we were saying before, you make it work. And you can get very creative when you don't have work in the books, or you don't know what you should be doing or whatever. And the amount of projects that I've done because I've just gone, oh, I don't know what I should be doing. Oh, let me create something. Let me do something. Let me be proactive. And then amazing things have come from that moment of just panic, pure panic. So I'm not sure that I answered your question, Joe Jr., but you kind of get an insight into my brain and how I sort of deal with things. But also just recognize that we all go through this as well. Everyone is having their own challenges, and whether that's in the microcosm of being a drummer, or whether that's in the macro of, you know, family life, or just life in general, or even go even bigger, the world, if you want to go that big, there will always be struggle in some aspect. So I think, I don't know, having some sort of like resolution with that with yourself, like, this is just part of it, and you just got to hold on. That's what someone once told me. You just got to keep holding on, Em. It'll be all right. Just keep holding on. And I do. And I don't know, it's working so far. Who knows? It might all fall apart tomorrow, but for now it's working.
Well, that's the thing, you know, and these, no matter, you can get used to one thing and then it could all flip on a dime anyway, you know. It's like just the example of how my touring schedule changed massively as soon as the dreaded Brexit came in. Because all of a sudden it was a lot easier to bring in the second chair drummers that lived in Europe, you know, for those types of shows. And you have to take the rough and the smooth with that, you know. It's like, I think at one point at the start of my career, I always noticed that I could be in October, November, and I'll look at it and go, ooh, diary's really empty till May. You know? But for a few years, that was quite consistent. It's like, right, okay, well, when I get to the end of the year, I'll know next year we'll have, you know, May onwards or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, I think I went from playing one set of gigs to another set of gigs, and all that changed. You know, all of a sudden I'm looking at my diary going, my God, what is going on? You know. And there's also the I don't know whether you feel this or this happens to you, but there's the networking is key, because people don't fully know what you're doing, and social media can be rose tinted glasses.
Oh yeah.
So like, it's always nice, you're out on the tour or you're doing this and that, and you get to do a photo each night, put that up, say where you've been, and it's all been lovely and that. But I also do think that it's quite important to then reach out to those that might be seeing this stuff and going, hey, how you doing? Yeah, just on this at the moment, but I'm back then. If you got anything going on, because the amount of times that I didn't do that, and then I'd come back off of something, a long stint, and the phone wouldn't ring.
Yeah.
And
I've got to say, that's one of my biggest weaknesses, is reaching out to people after something's finished and going, hey, so I'm around. That is probably my fatal flaw. So I admire people that are able to just do that. And like you say, you used to not be great at it, but I find that really tough to be like, so I need some work. Hello, I'm back. Like, I don't know. So I'm still working on that. That's something that I'm still working on. And in terms of the social media thing, I think that's why I'm so active on social media, because I know you sort of, before we started recording, you were talking about the fact that you had seen me on The Voice Kids and it reminded you to get back in touch. Yeah. And that's very much my ethos with social media. For me, there's a multitude of reasons that I think social media is great. And it, like you say, it's great if you're out on the road and you can post up pictures or whatever. But for me personally, it's twofold. It's first of all getting potential like either clients for the studio, coaching clients for that side of things, or artists, just for people to get to know me and understand me. And a lot of my videos are chatting on subjects or playing or whatever, and just to familiarize myself with my audience. But then second to that is what I just said about The Voice Kids, is keeping top of mind. Because inevitably, if someone's scrolling on social media and they're currently in a position like, oh God, we did a drummer for that tour, and then I pop up because I posted today, and they go, yes, let's get Emily. That's a really good idea. And weirdly, I think that was a big part of the reason that I got The Voice Kids, is because at the time, well, I mean, still, but I was posting so many videos of me chatting about stuff, and I've been told, and I think I come across quite positive and quite enthusiastic and stuff like that. And the musical director for The Voice Kids saw a bunch of my posts, and he called me. I hadn't spoken to him for like, I don't know, 8 years, 7 years. And he was like, look, Ash has left The Voice Kids, and I just think you'd be a really good fit, because I just love all your positivity. I think you'd be great with the kids. Like, it feels like the right fit. And I just thought that was so interesting, because it was not about my playing at all. And it was about the fact that I'd obviously been in his consciousness for a bit of time for him to take notice, and then to get the call off the back of that and fill the shoes of Ash Sohn, for crying out loud. Like, I owe a lot of that gig. I mean, we were friends as well, but I owe a lot of that gig to the fact that I was on social media and just being visible, you know what I mean? So I think it's such a valuable thing. Definitely, yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting, useful piece of insight, because I can, you can guarantee it's at some point someone has probably watched a show like that and said, "Oh, how did that person get that?"
Yeah,
so that's worth its weight in gold just there.
Yeah, well, I can give you another example. So with The Darkness, the reason that they called me was because they saw a video of me on YouTube wrapped in fairy lights playing a Foo Fighters song. That was literally it. They were going down a YouTube rabbit hole trying to find their new drummer, and they came across me. And then they happened to ask one of their techs if they knew about me or if I'd worked with them. And somehow there was some weird connection between him and one of the techs that worked on Bryan Ferry. I don't even remember. It was a really tenuous connection. But just from seeing that one video, and then one person sort of vouching for me, but not really, because we'd never met, but it was just like, oh no, I know of that person. They were like, cool. And they gave me a call. And that's how I ended up recording on Last of Our Kind. We did some touring together, and I worked with them for a year, essentially. And that was because of a YouTube video. So yeah, social media is so much more. I know people give it a really bad rap, and I understand why, and it's hard. It is hard. It's not easy. I do it, and I put a lot of time and effort into it. It's just, I understand how valuable it is, and it's not about going, hey, hire me. It's not about that. It's about familiarity and just letting people get to know you and being vulnerable with them, which is hard. It's really, really difficult. And it's taken me a long time to kind of understand where I place myself within that, because obviously everyone has different things to offer and stuff like that. I'm just the over enthusiastic, positive idiot, basically, who loves to chat on a subject. I love playing songs, so you'll catch me playing, but it's never going to be some crazy stuff. It's just going to be like groove stuff, but it's where my heart is. And consequently, as I say, people have gravitated towards me, and the more that I put out there who I am truly, the more gigs that I get that are very in line with me, how I am, and the values that I have. And The Voice was or is a perfect example of that. You know, the people on that gig are some of my favorite people on the planet. Not only are they phenomenal musicians, they're just so great to be around. I've never laughed so much on a gig. Like, we are constantly just cracking up to the point that it's probably very unprofessional, if I'm honest. But and then the actual workflow, the way they work is so quick, and it's so like together. Everyone knows their job and executes their job perfectly. So there's no like fat to be trimmed. It's just like bang, 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 bang. We get the job done, and it's going to be absolutely banging. And everyone has that very high standard that they're working to. And then on top of that, the fact that you've got, you know, let's say you've got 40 songs to record in the blinds. Every single one of those songs is different. It's different genres, it's different like approaches, and you've got to try and make it sound legit. Like, everything that we're doing, we just want it to sound right. And the kind of pace that you have to work with to do that, and the variety of that, is so in line with my personality and what I love the most about music. I love adapting. I love challenges. I mean, I hate it sometimes. It's I feel vulnerable. It's hard. I literally hate myself sometimes when I'm playing, but I know that I'm always growing, and that gig for me is just so brilliant on all those levels. And the reason that I feel I fit in with that, and why they came to me and it's all worked out, is partly because I was able to go, hey, so this is me. I'm a bit of an idiot, and I love playing drums and I love playing songs. And then Dave gave me the call and went, yeah, come do the gig. I mean, he didn't even audition me. Literally, we went and had a coffee. He explained the gig to me. He went, do you want it? And I was like, yeah, I want it. Even though inside I was going, oh my God, I can't do it. I can't, because it's a big reading gig. And I wasn't that great at reading at the time. And I was like, oh my God, I need to learn to read properly. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But I was like, yeah, I want to do it. Like, let's do it. I want to do it. And yeah, 4 years later, still on it. So I guess I'm doing an all right job. I don't know.
So did that excel you into reading then? Was that the kind of a catalyst to really get you better at reading? Or do you still feel like you're kind of still getting through it, or you're confident enough and you read it all really well now?
Yeah, so I have this weird thing in my head. Whenever I get asked to do something and there's a voice in me that says, you can't do that, there's another voice that goes, we better learn then. So with that, it was very much, I was terrified. And, you know, my level of reading, I'd say, was like drum exercises and maybe the most simple charts, but I would need to probably look at them for a long time and practice them. So I put together a boot camp for myself. Basically, I had 3 months to work with, and I just drilled hundreds of charts, and not just one style of chart, like different styles of charts, like different complexity of how they were written out. I would also obviously different genres as well. I got stuff from previous years so that I could like cross-reference with how I was playing and reading charts that I had found versus the ones that were written. I mean, I will say, luckily, the charts on The Voice are written by one of the most incredible people, who basically has got the balance between what you need to see and but not all the notes, if you know what I mean. So there's just enough information that they are I will never read a more perfect chart. So I was very lucky in that respect. But coming in on that first day of rehearsals, I knew that I could do the job, and I knew that you put any chart in front of me and I will just play it. And I knew that. And now at this stage, I mean, in terms of his charts, he can literally put anything in front of me. I mean, we now have a relationship where he knows what I need to see, and, you know, I know what he means sometimes when he's, you know, so it's really interesting, that in itself. Now, I won't say that if I'm put, you know, some mad chart in front of me, I'm not saying that I would play that perfectly, but if you'd asked me 5 years ago or put something like that in front of me 5 years ago, I would have freaked. Like all of my musicality, all of my instinct would just fly out the window. It was the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. Whereas now it doesn't scare me. I'm just like, I mean, I'm actually a really big advocate for charts now. I'm like, this is a great idea. Like, we can all just rock up and play these songs together. And like, why isn't everyone doing this? Of course, many people are doing it. I just wasn't at the time. But yeah, it definitely, I mean, to say that it accelerated my reading would be an understatement. It just like catapulted me into it, and I'm so grateful that it did. And interestingly, just generally speaking, The Voice is a gig that seems to bring up my biggest insecurities as a player. I think it's because it does sort of like cover such a wide scope genre wise, and just the whole gig is so unique and you really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you want to talk about sort of thinking through eventualities and things that might go wrong. It's impossible on that gig because it's such a unique situation. But I find it really valuable to each year I sort of notice something else about me or my playing that I'm vulnerable about, and then I spend the next year tackling that, and then I notice when I come back, how do I feel about that now? And every year I'm growing and growing, and it's possibly been the most valuable gig to me in terms of growth, skills. Like I say, the musicianship on that gig, they are some of the best musicians in the world, and I just I don't know whether you have this, but I often find myself sitting there or playing with them and just going, I don't know how I got here. And I don't belong here. Like I'm getting away with this. This is awesome. Like, let me just keep getting away with it for a bit longer. Cause I just feel so lucky. So lucky. It's just awesome.
Do you find that, well, I'm guessing that's now giving you the confidence to literally take on anything else that comes in as a charted gig?
Yes.
Do you find that there's a lot more live charted gigs now, or is it a lot more people still kind of giving the old kind of, we'll send you the set list and maybe some recordings and stuff?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can only talk about the people that are getting in touch with me, and it is definitely just, here's the set, learn it. And it's like, there's been a couple of gigs that are sort of like charts, but not in my experience, but that can all change. Do you know what I mean? But
I suppose,
generally speaking, it's more set lists, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also depending on the area in which you're playing in, isn't it? Because obviously The Voice is TV.
Exactly,
And anything TV is roughly that, or pit work and theatre and stuff. So that's, charted as a given usually, isn't it?
Absolutely,
I suppose any kind of pop culture stuff and rock stuff isn't really going to chart it out, especially seeing as they probably don't want to spend the time or the money to do it either, really, do they?
No, and often you rock up on gigs like that and they look at you like you're crazy because you've done your own charts or done your own roadmaps or whatever, and they're like, why have you done that? I'm like, because I'm a professional. Like, what are you talking about? Because I've learned the songs.
This is how I've interpreted the stuff you've sent me.
Yes, this is that message you sent me, that one long audio file that hasn't been chopped up, and you didn't tell me any of the song names. So I've named all the songs myself. I'm guessing this one's called Bumblebee, or I don't know. Do you know what I love that the most about this world is that every situation is so unique, and you just come across so many little quirks with every situation that you're in, and I love them. I love the beauty of how just imperfectly our brains work and different people's brains work, and you just go, how is this happening? And again, it always comes back to like the gig will happen, like we'll make it work, because you do sometimes look at your surroundings and go, I don't know how you guys have ever actually gotten together to play a gig, because this is chaotic, but it always happens. And then you just go, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that is so indicative of this industry? It's chaos and it's lovely. And I think, as I say, with everything, if you can kind of just lean into that and just appreciate it for what it is, I think it makes you really enjoy it and find value in everything, really, even when it seems like on the surface it's actually a nightmare situation. It's like, oh no, actually, I mean, this is a nightmare, but wow, this is crazy, this is great. Like, all right, let's go with this, fly by the seat of our pants, go.
And sometimes it could literally just be learning the kind of the inward way that the click of the group is, you know.
Yes.
And what the amount of times I've been on gigs and you got the set list and they're actually, because they're so used to it and they play with each other for so long, they've got different names for different songs anyway.
Oh yeah, all of that.
You know, and it's like, so they're nonchalantly shouting out a track to give it a go out in soundcheck or whatever, and you're like,
yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
What?
And then there's always that fun line when someone says, oh, by the way, there's some stops that we put in this one, but don't worry, just watch me. It's like, cool, all right,
Yeah.
cool, let's go.
One of the things that started to throw me initially, and then I got used to it, is one of the gigs I do is a George Michael tribute, and they, on the track "Wake Me Up Before We Go," they the lyric, rather than jitterbug, they've put fish and chips instead. And when we first played that gig, I thought I was going insane. Because
I would think I was losing my marbles.
Yeah, because it's, you know, it's what, basically me on that bit with the backing line, which is recorded on track.
Yeah.
And I could also then hear the two BVs singing as well, and they're singing correctly, but the track is still saying fish and chips. And it took me probably about 3 or 4 gigs before I turned around to the bass player and went, does it say fish and chips? And this big grin just came across his face, and he went, yeah. There's quite a few in the entire set like that, because I got bored when I reprogrammed it. I was like, oh, great. Does anyone else know? And he was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
And no one else has ever noticed.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why that fills me with dread, the fact that nobody's noticed. I know that. Like, oh my gosh.
Like,
I mean,
how have I noticed it?
Yeah,
but none of the backing, but none of the backing singers that sing with it, have noticed. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, all right. I'm just a drummer. I don't know. Like, yeah, cool. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Like,
bonkers. But yeah, that's it for the inside jokes. He's he stopped doing that so much now because they have to bring in so many depths and bits and pieces. But
it's so funny, isn't it? So funny, these little moments.
Oh, right. Well, I suppose we should get on to another question. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is from Sophie Lock, and she's from the UK. And Sophie says, what tips would you have for a beginner in drumming when it comes to picking out your first kit and learning to practice without one?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so hello, Sophie Lock, first of all. So picking out your first kit. Well, obviously there's so many factors that go into picking out your first kit. Most importantly is, what is the space that you have to practice in? Because for me, growing up, I grew up in a terraced house, which means that we had neighbors on both sides, and not much space, hardly any space. An acoustic kit was not an option, basically. So and also my parents were convinced that this was just a phase, so they sort of said, right, or what they decided was to get me an electronic kit, which obviously has a volume control, which is great, and you can use it with headphones. But also they sort of thought in their head it would lose less value, so that when they were going to sell it, when I gave up after 6 months or whatever. By the way, can I just say, at this point, I'd already been playing for 3 years. I'd already decided that I was definitely doing this thing, but I'm sure it's just a phase. Maybe it was wishful thinking. So yes, I started out on an electronic kit, and these days you can get fairly affordable electronic kits that don't have a huge footprint. There's a Yamaha DTX 400, I think it is, that is a very small footprint, which is great for beginners, definitely. Now, obviously, what comes with that slight downsides in that playing an acoustic kit versus an electronic kit is very different in terms of feel, in terms of like velocity control, and just understanding how sticks and your limbs kind of react to acoustic drums. And if you're going out doing live shows where there's, say, a house kit, it will feel different, and it is a different experience. If, however, you have a situation where you can have an acoustic kit in your house or wherever you are, I'd say go for that. If you can, if you are able, like, go for an acoustic kit. And in terms of what to pick out, I mean, honestly, I'd go with something that is affordable, whatever's in your budget. And weirdly, what I would say is go for a bit of a shoddier kit. In terms of like, don't go for a professional level kit or anything like that when you're starting out, because a lesson that I learned very early on, when I didn't have a kit, I was going into school every day, and we had drums there, which I'm so grateful and lucky that we did. And there was this one kit, it was an old Premier kit, which, looking back, I would love that kit now, and I wish that I could just go and pick it up and bring it to my studio. It was from the 60s, and it was so run down. And when I played on it, it sounded awful, you know. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just hitting it. I wasn't playing it. Anyway, I would always like complain. So I grew up with a girl called Charisse Say. She's a drummer for Simple Minds now. We started playing drums on the same day when we were 11 years old. So we were going to school every morning, and there would be two kits set up side by side. So whoever got the Premier kit would be like, oh, well, I'm on the rubbish sounding kit or whatever. Like, moan. Oh, it's the kit. It's not me. It's the kit. Anyway, one day, this boy called Ben, I can't remember his surname. He was maybe 3 or 4 years older, and he played drums as well. And I was sat playing on this Premier kit, and obviously, standard school situation. There's a boy that's 3 years older than you that plays drums. You instantly vacate the kit. They are king. They get to go and play whatever they want. He got on this kit and he played, and it sounded incredible. And I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Why is it when I play that kit, it sounds awful, but when he plays it, it sounds phenomenal? And it was my first lesson in understanding that if you can make a quote unquote bad kit sound good, obviously in hindsight, that kit was not bad. I was just bad. But if you can make a bad kit sound good, and whether that's your own kit, whether that's going to a venue with some busted up kit and whatever, and, you know, you work out ways to make it sound half decent. If you can do that, when you do actually get onto a professional level kit or a higher level kit or whatever, you will be able to play that kit so much more beautifully and make it sing and really get the tones out of that kit. But yeah, I wouldn't start out with, you know, spending $2,000 on a kit or whatever. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, because you need to sort of work through understanding how to get a sound out of a kit, and it's just going to put you in a great position later on. Like I say, you can literally come up to any drum kit and just go, cool, I know that I can get a decent sound out of this no matter what it is. So and yeah, there's no point jumping the gun. Me and you were joking, Lars, about all the gear, no idea, and I was saying that is like the motto of my life a lot of the time. I'm like, oh my god, I don't even know what I'm doing. But don't be that person that has like spent all this money on all this gear and the perfect cymbals and the perfect drums, but you can't actually play them. You can't play them as they deserve to be played. So, and also it's a fun way to kind of, like, in terms of upgrading your kit, say, I would use it as a reward for, you know, if I hit this milestone, or if I've been playing for 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to allow myself to treat myself with a new snare drum or a new set of hi-hats, or, you know what I mean? And just bring it into your progression as a drummer. And yeah, but in terms of like just starting out, I'd say just get something that makes a noise. And then in terms of Sophie, you were saying about not having a kit, I didn't have a kit for the first 3 years. Like I said, I was lucky in that I had a school that had drums in it. So I would go in school an hour early. I would go for an hour at lunchtime, an hour after school, and I would go practice. That was my routine. I did that for 7 years that I was at school. So if you can find a situation like that, that's great. But aside from that, I was just tapping on my lap and just using my hands and my feet just to get the mechanics going of what it was like, what, you know, just getting the dexterity and silly things like using a computer mouse with my left hand. I'm right-handed, but use it with my left hand so that I just had more understanding of my limbs and just thought about all the stuff outside of that. Also listening to music, just listen to loads of different types of music. You know, if you want to air drum or tap to play along, that's great. also, like, I mean, this is probably a little bit too far, but I'm a bit extreme. So like visualizing as well. So say you're listening to your favorite album or song or whatever, visualize yourself playing it. Just close your eyes and visualize yourself playing it, because there is proven studies into actually visualization and then your limbs kind of understanding what they need to do, so that when you do get behind a kit, there is at least a little more understanding of the mechanics of what you should be doing, and yeah, all that sort of stuff. So I hope that helps in some way.
Yeah, actually, to further on that last point, and I kind of pinched some of this from Jojo Mayer's DVD. Was it Weapons for the Modern Drummer? I think it was.
Oh yeah.
He goes. He always did a great definition on technique, and the example he said is if a guy throws a trash can out the window, and it creates the exact desired effect of sound he wants, then that's a perfect technique.
100%.
And I always thought that was quite interesting. And what you were saying about the visualizing thing, it also mentions about, of course, we get older, or if we have any form, specific disability or whatever, that can immediately hamper doing certain things,
Yeah.
evidently so. But there's always a way around those things, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Def Leppard's drummer is the key sort of poster boy for that, I think.
Exactly.
And he'll find a way.
Yeah, and that's it. And it was so grateful that his peers around him were willing to see through that and go, But the whole visualizing thing, it's like at the end of the day, it's your brain sending the signals to tell everything what to do. So if you can visualize those motions and
it's because, as I say, they do it in sport a lot. Like it's a proven technique that they use. People that are like swimmers or whatever, they're visualizing every stroke. Michael Phelps is really famous for doing that. Same with like ice skaters doing their programs. My sister's an ice skater, so I have a bit of knowledge in that world as well. And the other thing is, I always remember my dad saying to me, he was like, look, you can only ever play things that you can hear in your head. Like that's just how it is. So you need to understand what you're hearing, whether you're physically listening to something or if you want to play something, you've got to be able to hear it first. It can't just kind of materialize. So in a way, it's a similar thing. It's audio visual, like what is audio visualization? I'm sure there's a word for that, but I'm not finding it in my vocabulary right now. But visualizing auditorily or visually. And then the kinesthetic thing, actually playing it is kind of the third step when it comes to that. And I think I also have that when I'm sort of learning sets, learning songs. I will often sort of like cover all the bases. So I will listen to the songs. Obviously, that's logical. I will chart the songs. So I have a visual representation of the structure of the song. I will visualize playing the songs in the situation, whether that's in an audition and whether that's on stage. I will imagine the rest of the band looking around to me, looking really happy, really into what I'm doing and everything going really well. And I don't know, it just covers all the bases for me. And it definitely brings me into every situation with the best chance, but B, just feeling confident because I've seen it happen already. I've seen that it's going to go well, and obviously sometimes it doesn't go as well as you visualize, but it's a really, really good sort of like foundation to start from, and I just think it's really, really valuable. So visualization I think is very underrated. And actually that's when I started playing with Bryan Ferry. I got the call for that gig the night before, and I had to learn all these songs, and I didn't have any drums at the time. I didn't have anywhere to practice. It wasn't going to happen. There was no possible physical way. So all I did was listen, chart, and visualize, and that's it. And then I came into, and the first time I played the songs was in soundcheck, and it was just like, and it worked. And I was like, there's definitely something in this, because that shouldn't have been okay. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't ideal, but again, I made it work, and it did work. And obviously I played with him for the next 3 years or whatever, doing his corporate shows, and I recorded on an album with him. So, there's a lot to be said for just listening, charting, visualizing. So don't panic too much if you don't actually have drums. Obviously that would be ideal, but it's not a showstopper. Nothing's a showstopper. Just you've got to work with what you've got. That's it. And if you can do that, you've got a good start in this industry, because that is the basis of this industry. Is just work with what you've got, whether that's you personality wise, whether that's gear wise, whether that, any number of things. Just make it work and it'll be all right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that, and the positive thinking on the visualization of stuff really does help, doesn't it? Because you could spend weeks sat behind a kit playing the same stuff, but if you take a step back, visualize it, and be positive about it, then you're probably more likely going to absorb it and then do it better than you are drilling through it for weeks before the show.
Absolutely. It's always an interesting thing to me as well, where people are learning. I say learning in inverted commas, because they're learning a song, but actually they're not. They're playing to a song that they may not have even properly listened to, which I find fascinating, because it's just like, no, you can't play a song if you haven't listened to it first. At the very least, properly understand the song and listen to the nuances and the fills and the just all the things. Take it in. Like what I often do, because I'm the person that if I'm doing if I'm listening to something, my hands need to be doing something. So I'm like writing stuff down, or like, I don't know, on my phone, or, just terrible. It's terrible. But I know this about myself. So what I do is I go for long walks. So I know that my body is occupied. So it's fine. Like my body's happy. So my ears and my brain can take in the information. Or if I go on long drives, that's my other thing. So that's always my prime time for learning, because I know that if my body is not occupied, it will distract me and I will then get really annoyed with myself. So I think it's also just knowing how you work, but the value in just listening to the material. It sounds so obvious, and yet the amount of people that I see that don't even properly listen to what they're meant to be playing is quite astounding to me. So listening is good.
And it really is an important key factor. Like that's I think that you can tell when someone hasn't listened fully through something, where they're playing all the right parts, but it doesn't necessarily feel correct.
It doesn't sit.
There's something wrong in that, that fill that's linking the verse to the chorus.
Yeah.
That intro doesn't quite gel, and it's like, but it's all correct for what's going on there, and I think fundamentally is that.
To me, I think it's the difference of like feeling like someone's playing on top of a song versus being in the song, playing in the song. That's how I know when I know something. It's like I either feel like I'm sort of surface level, just like playing on top, like or if it's like, oh no, this is in my soul, this is coming from all my being. I am here and I am part of this, and we're doing this. Like it's a real different feeling, and it's very difficult to describe. But for me, everything is very like either visual or just I feel it in me. I mean, like you can see me, like when I know it's in my stomach, it's in my gut. It's like my whole posture changes. I'm like almost like I'm ready for battle. That's how I feel. And it doesn't matter if it's like a ballad. I'm reaching into the depths of my soul and my emotion to really be in there. But if I don't know it that well and I'm just playing for the sake of it, I'm just like almost tap dancing on top of the song, just like da, 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 da. All right, we're done. Cool. All right, see you later. Like just not surface level. And I'm not about that. Like that's not my life. That's not what I want. I want to feel the things, and obviously with that comes its own problems, because it means that every gig I come off stage and I'm exhausted emotionally. I may have been screaming, I may have been crying during the show. Like it just depends what comes up for me. Songs evoke emotion in me, they evoke memories of people that I maybe have not thought about for 10-20 years, but I just let it come, because it's just, I don't know, I guess it's very cathartic for me as well. Like, it is music and drums. And I feel like drummers are always, maybe not the most chilled people, but we're certainly never the angriest ones in the room. We're just like, oh, it's all fine. Like, I'm quite energetic, but I'm not like, I'm just like, no, like, this is awesome. Like, this is really cool. And I do wonder about that, the kind of emotional physicality of playing drums, and it does sort of level us out in a certain way, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making any sense at this point, but there we go.
Well, I think the interesting take on that as well is that exactly what you've described is exactly what music should do, whether you're a player or a listener of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if the players have got those thoughts, feelings, and emotions whilst they're playing it, then surely that's gold dust for the audience, because it's like,
I mean, that's my theory, and I see my results when I sort of play like that, and I'd like to report back that yes, that is my experience.
Yeah, because that's the thing, how many times have you been an audience member when you've sat there and you've thought, yeah, technically it's all great, but where's the vibe,
Yeah,
because those guys
more
up there are going
like
through the motions,
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is, I often say this to people that maybe are not a professional musician, but they love music. And I'm like, and it often happens when I go watch other people play gigs. And if I'm with someone that isn't a professional musician, they're like, aren't you loving this? And I'm like, I am. But I'll tell you the blessing and the curse of being a musician, doing what I do. I'm hypersensitive to what's happening on stage, what's being played. All I can see is that drum tech is running around frantically because there's something wrong with the drums and nobody else is paying any attention, and it's stressing me out. Also, like, the bass player is not even like whatever, like, do you know what I mean? And you just become so hyper tuned into not just the music that's being played, but the dynamics between people as well. And you're like, I think the keys player's pissed off with the singer, like I'm seeing daggers, and what's going on? And it's absolutely mental, but I can't switch it off. And the reason is that when I'm on stage, I'm the same. I'm so hyper aware of not just the music that we're playing, but everyone on stage. I want to make sure that everyone's okay, everyone feels safe, we're all in this together, we're doing the thing. So I notice when things are wrong, and I want to help. It's my natural inclination. Obviously, there's not a lot I can do if I'm playing, but it's just like I want to make sure they're okay. Maybe I need to get someone else's attention to go and like, they're having a problem or whatever it is. But consequently, you go to gigs and you listen to music in a different way. And funnily enough, I was talking to the Voice Kids boys about this when we were last filming. I was saying, I wish I had a switch on my ears and in my brain where I could switch it and I would hear music as I did before I started playing drums. Because I just think that would be the most beautiful gift, to just hear it without all the information that I now have after 25 years of playing and being in this industry. And I love it more than anything, but it does change your perception of what music is and how it makes you feel, So I think it would be a fun thing to have a switch like that. That would be good.
Have you ever had that time where a show has been, that you've gone to see, that a show has been that good that it has been able to switch that off?
Yes. And there's been, like I say, often actually they're very small gigs that I'm just like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. And those moments are magical, and I hold them really dearly to my heart. But in terms of like a bigger show, the one that always comes to mind, so there's a drummer called JJ Johnson. He used to play with John Mayer back in the day. Just phenomenal drummer, lovely human. I've known him for a long time, and he messaged me and said, I'm going to be in London with my new band if you want to come down and come to the show. And I was like, yeah, cool, that sounds great. This was in 2011. I was like, yeah, cool. I hadn't even heard of this band, and I thought, you know what, I'm not even going to listen to the songs. I'm just going to go and just take it for what it is, because I'm sure it'll be fun. And it was a Shepherd's Bush Empire. And I remember getting there late because, typical musician, like, I don't want to see the support band. I just want to go for the gig. So I rock up and I open the doors, and it was, I don't know if you know, Tedeschi Trucks band. So it was them, and they were doing a cover of a Jimi Hendrix tune, which I can't even remember what it is in this moment. But I just went through the doors and I was like, oh my God, this is just the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And I literally just sat there. I was by myself as well. I really enjoyed listening to music by myself, going to gigs by myself, so I can truly like take it in, especially when it's something like that. And I just remember being awestruck for the whole thing, and coming in cold, not understanding that I was about to hear Susan Tedeschi's voice and Derek Trucks is playing on guitar. It was a double drummer gig, so that was fun. The band were phenomenal, and then their own songs were unbelievable. I mean, I'm a big fan of like Bonnie Raitt and people like that, and a lot of 70s music. And there was a lot of that kind of element going on, and I was just like, what is that? This is unbelievable. So yeah, when it happens hard for me. I'm like, wow, this is all the things. I'm just feeling all the emotions. So yeah, it does happen, but I'd love to tell you that happens a lot, but honestly it doesn't. But when it does, it feels even more special. So yeah, in a way it's fine. I'm happy with it, really.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with you on that one. And funny enough, 90% of the time, the shows that do that for me, that take me off the busman's holiday, so to speak, and makes me go, oh, are usually country shows, are usually country artists, because they're just well, they can, you know. It's funny enough, it's one of the genres that I've always wanted to be involved with, but haven't quite got in there yet.
Oh, interesting. I like that you said yet. That makes me so happy. Yes, yet. I agree with you.
You know, I've had too much focus in other areas and stuff, and not, I suppose it's my own fault, but not feeling like enough time to truly dive into it. But I will, because it's on my wish list. It's my to do, you know.
We'll get there.
But it's just something about some of the country. But that's the thing. I'm kind of in my personal life, I don't tend to listen to the styles that I'm playing every single day.
Same, yeah.
Same. So it's actually my musical taste is usually would usually either be country radio or classical FM.
Yeah,
and that, that's it for me. So hopefully it doesn't change it too much if I end up in playing with some country artists. But
no, but I know what you're saying. I'm the same. I mean, it's probably sacrilege to say, but if I do listen to music outside of work, it's often just like either classical piano music or classical music like you. But actually, more often than not, I actually prefer just listening to like people talking. So like podcasts and stuff like that. Yeah. That's usually my go-to. That's how I relax, because like I say, it's again one of these weird things when music becomes your job, and you can't just listen to music as it is a lot of the time. There's a lot of, at least for me, not analysis, but you just listen to it in a different way. It's really hard to describe. In saying that, there are certain bands or artists that I will listen to, but it's often artists that I liked before I started playing the drums. So the sort of nostalgia effect. Then I'm kind of all right. I'm like, oh no, that's cool, because listening to that just reminds me of being on a 6-hour journey down to Cornwall with my family, where we would spend 2 weeks camping in a campsite and going to the beach. So that's beautiful. Like, yes, I take that for what it is. But yeah, any sort of newer music, it's like, I need that switch. I need that switch in my brain so that I can switch off the musician side of my brain, so that I can just enjoy it as a punter, as it was meant to be intended. yeah.
And it's tough to do when you're immersed with it 24/7. Really, you know.
Exactly.
It's not that easy, and nowadays more so than ever, it's not like we can just go out, make a living on a gig, and then come back and go, okay, well, I can have a break until the next one or whatever. You know, we've got to be back, and we've got to be doing, pushing yourself, your social media, or teaching, and it's all encompassing, isn't it? Really, it's like
it's a full-time job.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful. We're very lucky to get to do it, but it's you can't just clock off.
No,
it's constant, which is great. I love that, but it can be a lot, and that's the other thing that people don't talk about. It's the fact that, I'm sure you're the same, we all get burnt out, we do too much, and we run ourselves into the ground, because A, we love it, but B, we're accountable with only one. Like, if I stop working, I don't get money to pay my rent. Exactly. So I better keep working, and I'm just lucky that I get to enjoy what I do, but it doesn't make it difficult sometimes, and that's okay. And also, there's a lot of guilt that people have around when they feel like they should be doing more, they should be doing this, and that's a tough thing to reconcile as well. The sort of guilt that we get to do what we love, there's sort of guilt around that, and then therefore I should be doing more. It's I haven't quite found that balance yet. I'm not sure I ever will. I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I think this is just how I am. And I kind of go on these cycles where I burn myself out, and then I have to take some time off, and I'm like, right, okay, recovery time, and, carry on from there. But Yeah, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing.
Yeah, it's a different. What we do is a different. You know, when people say work-wise they're on the treadmill,
Yeah,
it's like it's a different kind of treadmill for us,
it
in the
is. Yeah,
respect that we couldn't get off even if we wanted to.
no,
You
because
know,
it's just us.
realistically, you know,
Yeah, that's it.
and
But we
you,
like the treadmill. That's the other thing.
yeah,
We really like the
yeah,
treadmill.
yeah. That's it. You know, and from the that kind of guilt factor that you say as well, it's like at times it you get to put, because it is a job, you know.
It is,
So
yeah.
if we do have to appreciate it, that it is a job, and at times it will get to you, but you can't help but then have that guilt of oh well, I love my job, so why should I feel, you
Yeah.
know, down or
Why do
miserable
yeah,
about it, or
exactly.
burnt out by it? It's like, but it's still a, you know, maybe a
Still,
vocation, but we're still working
yeah,
at it.
this is it. It's,
And you know, finding that balance for us is just the same as any other job in the world, where you still have to go, okay, well, maybe I'll have an afternoon off.
yeah. The
You know?
hardest sentence to speak
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
in my life.
that's it.
Is that,
My
maybe I should take this afternoon off.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
it. My brain immediately went to, like, you know, most people would have a week off holiday type thing, and I went to say it, and then I went no, because neither of us would ever empathise with that. It's like, what's a week off?
You
Yeah.
say that. Actually, I am going to Canada next week for a week for a family holiday. I know, not a family wedding, sorry. So
Yeah.
I am actually taking a week off. But in saying that, already I've been in touch with a podcast host that wants to meet up for a coffee, and
Okay, yeah, that's
I'm
it.
like, don't work, don't do work.
It's slowly creeping into the trip, isn't it?
It is already, and oh yeah. Anyway, I know this about myself. It's fine, but I am
Yeah,
gonna. This is the thing for me. I have to actively make myself take time off, and it's harder than my job. Easily, so much harder than my job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's the passion in which we're infused with for music, really. So, you
Absolutely.
know, we're all entitled to have a grumble, but
Yeah.
you know, we're still very lucky with what we can do. You know,
So lucky. Yeah.
going back to that Q&A I had a couple of months back, you know, someone said to me, one of the questions was, what's the biggest thing you've done, and what was, oh no, sorry, it phrased it was, what was your biggest break?
Right.
And typical joke in me went, oh, my right arm. And I was like, actually, no, joking, never broken it. But I said, actually, I said, it shouldn't be about your biggest break, and it should never be about your biggest failure. I said, the fact that I've made a career of it for over 25 years is the biggest break.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
You know, because, you know, not everybody can say that they aimed to do what they love to do, and carried on doing it for the rest of their lives, you know. And it's really not important whether you play, you know, you play small little gigs for the rest of your life, as long as that's, you know.
Exactly. I often say that I think it's very important to define what success is to you. And for me, success was always just making a living. And like you say, it was not about playing down, you know, the puzzle down in Hammersmith that held, I don't know, 200 people, but actually there was only 4 people there. But, you know, that was 150 quid when I was 18 or whatever, or whether it's playing a huge festival in front of like 80,000 people, that those two things are the same to me. There's still both earning a living, playing the drums, and that's it. And that's what's so interesting now where I find myself, because there's so many facets to my career that I never thought that I would have. Things like having my remote recording studio. I never thought in a million years that I would be in this position right now, but I am, and I'm so glad that I am. And it's like you're saying, things like doing the coaching and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of all these things that are like, it all makes, it's not me as a drummer, it's just me, my career is doing things that I just adore. And that's not to say there aren't bits that I don't enjoy, like, for instance, emails. I'm terrible at emails. I'm the worst person at replying. It takes me forever, which you know, because it took me forever to reply to you, and I apologize again, but it's just the nature of my sort of chaotic life. But to me, I could never dream of being so successful that I could get up in the morning and just go, God, I'm really looking forward to my day. And the fact that in the middle of the day I go for a walk for an hour in the woods, and then I carry on, and I'm like, cool. And then in the evening I can cook myself a nice meal. That is beyond success to me. Like, I know it's the most cliche thing ever. I am living my best life right now. I'm loving it. But what I will also say in the same breath is that I also appreciate that this is just this period of time, and things will change, because things always change, and that's just life. So who knows what tomorrow will bring, but for right now, I'm so grateful to be where I am. And you know, yeah, it's taken a lot of work, and it will continue to take a lot of work, but I just love my work. I really do.
And it's just keeping moving forwards, and
Yes.
to go back on, you know, what you said earlier in the respect of those that, you know, keep doing will be the ones that, you know, have just a professional career. Just hang in there, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll work at it, obviously, not just, you know.
Yeah, don't just sit idly and go,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you've got to actually do stuff and be proactive. But
exactly,
yeah, you just got to keep going.
Just understand the merit of the work that you need to do.
Yes, absolutely. Just do more of it.
Yeah, and appreciate the rewards that come along with that.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered that pretty well. So let's throw another question into the mix then, shall we? Okay, so so more of a practice-based one again. So David Patterson from Ohio, put my teeth back in, is asking, what is your warm-up routine when you practice?
Oh, that's a great question. All right, you ready for the big confession of the day? I don't have a routine when I practice. I don't have a warm-up routine. I don't have a warm-up routine when I go on stage. I just dive right in, which is probably terrible. I'm sure that it makes you judge me, and that's fine. And over the years, I have sort of like tried a few routines, but honestly, it just takes when I play, I will say I don't have any sort of injuries. I don't have any sort of pain. So therefore, I don't feel the need to do a warm-up routine. However, if I was playing a gig where I was coming off with pain, or I felt like I wasn't warmed up to do the show, I absolutely would. So I'm the kind of person, in the same way that you were talking about throwing the trash can out the window and it makes the right sound, therefore it's fine. That is my whole ethos on playing, technique, placement of drums, everything. It's like my technique, where I put everything, is all to just facilitate me to be able to play the drums. So if I'm not in any pain, great. If I am, like, there's something that I had for a long time. I had a lot of shoulder pain in my right shoulder. It came on from basically gigging around London when I was a kid, and I would take my breakables and having my cymbal bag over my shoulder and going on the train or going on the bus or whatever, and it ruined my shoulder for years, to the point that I couldn't play sometimes. But anyway, that injury still flares up, like, very occasionally, and all it is my right position. If that is slightly off, it ruins me. So I know that about myself. So I know if I'm getting pain in my shoulder, I need to change the position of my ride. And it's the same with all of my technique. As long as I can play what I need to play, then I'm fine. As long as I'm not in pain when I come off stage, or I'm not my limbs aren't fatigued, great, my technique's fine. And then it's the same with warming up. I just, for some reason, I haven't had to do that so far, and maybe in the future I will. What I'll also say as well is that that's how I see rudiments, in terms of, to me, rudiments are like vocabulary. And as long as I can physically play what I need to play, then it's not that I'm not too bothered about rudiments. I've done years of doing rudiments work, obviously, as we all have, like growing up or whatever. However, if there's something that I'm hearing in my head, but I can't execute it, or something that I'm trying to learn and I can't do it, then I will drill down into the bare bones. Okay, what is lacking here? What do I need to work on? So I'm a very purpose-driven drummer. I need to have a physical reason to learn something. I'm not great at learning things abstractly. Like, let's say I've got this book that's right in front of me, Conversations in Clave by Horacio Hernandez. And that's a book that I've probably opened once when I was 15, because realistically, I've never been on a gig where I need to be using all the clave stuff and the Latin stuff. It's beautiful and I love it and I admire it and I think it's phenomenal. However, I have no reason to learn this right now. Maybe I will, in the same way I learned reading, because the job was there. And it's like, you just got to learn. And it's like, all right, cool, right, I guess we're doing this. So for me, it's the same with things like rudiments, warming up, position, technique. You can have all those things, and that's great, as long as they do what they're there to do. So for me, warming up, when I've tried it, in all honesty, and maybe someone else watching this will feel the same, it very quickly drains the energy and the joy out of what I'm about to play. I like going in really honestly and just vulnerably, like just, and whether that's playing a gig and just coming into the first song like, let's go. Or if it's, at the moment, I've been doing this 30 minutes a day, like free playing. So it's just complete. So one of my biggest vulnerabilities that, again, came off of the back of the Voice Kids was how insecure I was about improvisation, about playing with no agenda, about just having silence and me. That was the most terrifying thing ever. And the idea of someone saying drum solo to me is literally my idea of hell. So I just thought, right, I want to tackle this because I'm not happy about it. So in that scenario, just coming to it completely fresh and just going, right, let's go. Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what comes out. I don't want to start warming up and kind of, because I feel like it would, what's the word? It would kind of take my playing in a certain direction, because I've already done 10 minutes of stick exercises or whatever, or foot exercises or whatever it is. And I'd rather come to every situation, I don't know, as a human. I know that probably sounds weird, but just like vulnerable as me in this moment. Like, what am I feeling? What is just going to come out of my limbs? Who knows? Like, let's see. Rather than, okay, I'll have to do these 10 minutes of like paradiddles and do them in different subdivisions, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not conducive to emotion and creativity to me. And as I say, I'm sure that I apologize to all of the teachers out there that are probably saying warming up is so important, and yes, it is for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that I know that it is great for them and they love it and they value it, and that's great and they should. Me in this current moment, I don't, but I'm not saying that I won't in the future. But yeah, sorry, that's a rubbish answer to the question, because I don't really do it. Confessions.
No, and you know what? That's it's all a personal feeling and approach to it, really, isn't it? You know, I don't, but I had to at one point, because I got carpal tunnel syndrome very early on.
Oh gosh. Wow. So yeah, that makes sense to me. I would in that situation.
You know, I'd get up, I'd sit behind a kit, and I'd play the gig, and then mine all happened because of improper kit placement in the end, and for years. So I'd go and hit my left crash, and because it was 2 up and 2 over, I'd get electric shock. Because it was, you know, fully pulling that tendon out and trapping the nerve. And then, you know, my ride wasn't low enough, and it was at, you know, blooming almost a Nico McBrain type angle. And I realised that you know, I spent years then adapting my playing position. Very much like your shoulder. And then, but for me, it's still like, you won't see, they're going to hate both of us. You won't really see me doing any rudiments or warm up in that sense either. The closest I'll get to is like
Yeah,
just getting
exactly.
blood through my hands, you know.
Exactly. If it's a bit cold, then I'll just shunt my shoulders a few times, get some blood in there, and then it's fine. I will say the only time that I have done warm-ups before shows is on Howard Jones and Kim Wilde, because it's a double drummer show and me and the other drummer will warm up, but it's more about us connecting for 10 minutes beforehand, and plus really we're taking the mick out of each other and we're kind of like goading each other. That's actually what's happening, but it's not about what we're playing. It's about, again, it's the connection between us, like, come on, let's go. Like, so it's more what it represents, I think. And I think for a lot of musicians, that is what warming up is about as well. It's the ritual of, before you go on stage, you do X, Y, and Z, and then you go on stage and you play a show. In the same way with Kim, for instance, before we go on stage, we all stand around in a circle, and we all do a shot, and then we all like just hug each other whilst the intro is playing, and we do stupid dances, and we do it's that moment of like, right, let's go, absolutely kill this. And those moments are incredibly important, I think. So if you do get a ritualistic kind of benefit from doing a warm-up, whether it, you know, just puts you in the right frame of mind for a gig, for instance, especially if you're suffering with anxiety or something like that, if that centers you for 10 minutes to get you into that headspace that you need to be in to go and do your job, then do it. It's incredibly valuable, and it's not about necessarily just warming up the limbs. As I say, for me, I'm just quite lucky that I don't suffer with anxiety going on stage or stage fright or anything like that, so I don't feel like I need it. But I will employ it, like I say, if there's another drummer on the gig and we just are having a laugh, essentially, then great. But warm-ups are not really my thing at the moment. So
I suppose, like you say as well, that thing between the, you know, for the double drummers and gigs and that type of thing, it's bonding, isn't it?
It is.
You know, the whole warm-up thing, I suppose the warm-up thing within practice, I think that's still an open book as well, you know, like,
depends what you're practicing as well. This is the thing, like, it's all very, because if, for instance, my double kick playing is horrendous, really, really bad. I used to be quite good at it when I was a kid playing in metal bands, but now it's nowhere. But if I was doing that, I definitely need to warm up my legs before I start, you know, bringing out the new breed or whatever to start doing all these kick patterns. So it's horses for courses, I think. And
but even on that kind of thing, I think I would still end up just picking a song that I like, that I can do that with. You know, it would be less of the thing of, right, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to do, like the example of, you know, double bass drum or whatever, you know. I think I would actually warm up less if I sat there and went, right, I'm going to do speed drills now.
Right, yeah.
Like, okay.
This is it. It needs to be practical as well. Like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? That's always my question to myself. It's like, is this practical? Am I going to use this? If the answer is no, I'm not doing it. I'm just not, because it's not. We only have a finite amount of time in this world. You can't learn everything. That's impossible. So therefore, I want to be really purposeful that what I'm learning is what I want to be playing, which is a massive learning curve. And also, like, will I use this? Is this going to be useful to me? Or is it like, does it feed my soul? That's the other thing. And if none of those are correct, I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to do it, because no, I want to spend my time doing other stuff.
I always thought it was a bit for those players that, and it's usually the people that are classed as the clinicians anyway. Those guys and girls that you generally see out on, you know, drum circuits, and they'll play with the odd bespoke band, and they make a good living, but you wouldn't really see them with the you know, on the standardized gigs. But when you know, when you ask them and they're like, so you got to do 8 hours a day, and you got to do this amount of this and that and the other, I'm okay with that if you're saying this is what I do and it works for me.
Absolutely.
But when it's being told to people that that's what you need to do to achieve the same,
I have issue with that.
That really bothers me. Because I know as a youngster, when I was at some of those things and I was being told, this is what you need to do, psychologically, for a start, it told me, well, I can never do that, so what's the point?
Yep.
You know, and then it just meant, well, where do I begin? What do I do for myself? You know.
Exactly.
So like
Yeah.
if you know, if I've had a student or anyone that's latched on, they go, "Oh, I absolutely love rudiments." I'm like, "Brilliant." Then then
Yeah.
then then, then dive into them, play them.
Yeah.
Or if it's the total opposite and they're like, "I can't stand them." I was like, "Okay,
It's fine.
fine. You know, what do you want to do? What
Yeah.
would you much
I think
prefer?"
that's it.
You know.
That's the other thing, is working out what you want to do. And like you say, I
Mm.
had a similar experience as you, watching clinics when I was younger and watching the clinicians and them saying, I play for 8 hours a day every day still. And they've been playing for 20, 30 years, 40 years. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't physically play for 8 hours. Like, does
No.
that means that I'm not good enough? That means that I will never be able to do this as a job. And you start sort of like feeding yourself all this sort of like false information, which is terrible as a kid. Like, just thinking like you have to, there's only one way to do things, but also not understanding that their job is a very specific type of way of earning a living playing drums. And yes, if you're going to be a clinician where you're talking about technique and you're doing all these crazy things, of course you need to play for 8 hours a day, but you also need to have the goals that warrant playing for 8 hours a day. You know, my goals are not that, not at all. And you know, it's much more valuable to me playing along to records. Like, that is a joy for me. Playing with other musicians, that is a joy for me. And you know, if I pull out any of that kind of like technical stuff, not that I can do it, thank goodness, I would hope that someone would be like, hey, come over here and just give me a clip around the ear, like, what are you doing? Like, just do your job. And I have great pride in that. And no, I don't practice for 8 hours a day. At the moment, I do 30 minutes of this sort of free play stuff. But other than that, I'm playing music. And I always remember reading, like when I was younger, I was very, well, I'm still obsessive, but when I was younger, I was very obsessive about understanding what made a professional drummer, and reading so many different interviews and biographies and just kind of like, yeah, just researching and working it out. And the common thread that I found was that all of the people that I admired had just been doing what they do a lot. So they were doing, you know, like obviously back in the day it was slightly different. They would go off to a studio and they'd record like a couple of albums a day, and then but they'd be doing that 5, 6, 7 days a week. They'd also be going out playing gigs, and I was just like, okay. And then they'd be going on tours, and I was just like, cool, I get it. So I just need to be doing loads of it, basically. And that would probably, you know, result in 8 hours a day of, you know, obviously some of that would have been traveling or whatever, or doing rehearsals or going and doing gigs, but just doing as much of it as I could. And that started paying off, and it just sort of made sense. And whether that was me just by myself playing along to records and just understanding about groove and locking in with other players, and, you know, recording myself and listening back and getting very meticulous on the little nuances of what time meant and what feel meant and how to develop that and all those things, then it made sense to me. And I was like, cool, because this is what I actually want to be doing. I don't want to be doing a clinic. That's not, like, it's impressive, it's fun to watch for 10 minutes, but then I'm like, I feel cold. But when you start recognizing where you feel warmth, and again, it's different for every person. You know, I know some people that love all that clinic stuff, and that they love to do that, and that's wicked, go do it. Some people love doing drum covers on YouTube, wicked, go do it. Like, some people want to be a TikTok drummer, wicked, go do it. Like, just whatever brings you that joy, just do more of it, just do it. And I'm not saying neglect other aspects if you're playing. Obviously it's good to be well-rounded, but you know, there should definitely be I don't know, a vision almost, I guess, of where you want to be, because otherwise it's so easy to look left and right at everyone else and go, oh, shiny object, I want to play like that, or I want to be doing that gig, or I want to do that. And you forget about, okay, no, but what do you want? Like, forget about everyone else, that's irrelevant. What brings you joy? Where do you want to be? Because you don't want to be 20 years down the road in a place where you're playing music that you don't like, with people that you don't like, on a platform that you don't like. It's just like, you've done all this work, you may as well be doing it towards something that you enjoy. Like, you get to do this as a living, make sure it's in the best way you can, you know.
Yeah, and you can change that and you can shake that up whenever you like, you know.
That's it.
It's down to you what you want to do, you know. I think the first 10 years of my career, I actually, without realising it, went down a path that I didn't actually want to aim for.
Yeah, I had that too.
then I got, and I got to that point, and actually the work started to dry up on some of that. And then I said, I did the scariest thing I could possibly do to myself and went, right, completely left the field, but to something and some things that I really want to do.
Love it.
And,
I think to have the bravery to do that says a lot as well, because you do need a moment of bravery. It's just like, okay, I recognize this isn't right. I'm going to have to make a really tough call. And I've done it too. We've all had those pivotal moments. And in the moment, it feels horrendous. It feels like, oh my God, is this a massive mistake? But once you sort of get away from it and you look back, you just go, wow, I'm so glad that I made that choice or that thing happened, because you find yourself in a much more synergistic, is that a word? Like, a lot more synergy with what you actually want to be doing. I think it's important to notice how you're feeling about stuff and not just, like you say, I think we've both been in positions where you find yourself somewhere and you go, wait, I didn't actually want to be here. Like, I know I'm playing drums, but everything else, I'm not convinced this is where I should be.
And you kind of look at it and you go, how did I end up here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then especially if you're in the situation where actually you have to take the responsibility to then move on from those things. So I suppose the bare bones of what I'm saying is it's not a job where it winds down or it finishes or they decide to replace you. It's all active, it's still going, and they're happy with what you're doing. And you're in that moment where you're like, I'm the one that has to say, sorry, I'm leaving.
Yes, horrible.
And that's like, oh my God. Not only am I stepping into the unknown, I'm also taking myself out of somewhere where they may just say, okay, well, if you're leaving, you ain't coming back.
Oh yeah, definitely. You've got to have that in your head that once I say I'm out, you need to reconcile the fact that the door is closed and you need to walk through it. It's scary. It's scary.
I think that the biggest lesson learnt from that as well, though, is that if you ever say, my time is up with this and I'm moving on to something else, those that you truly want to work with will leave the door open anyway, won't they?
That's true. That is true.
Those that have ever closed doors to me have been people that after a while I've all of a sudden gone, in hindsight, I don't want to work with you anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Because actually you're not on the same ethos, you're not on the same
totally level. It's interesting how things pan out, and as I say, when you start looking retrospectively and just go, that's interesting, and I find myself around these people and they're pretty awesome. And actually those people, there were a few red flags that I was kind of ignoring, like, because I'm in this situation so I need to just see the best in it, but actually about it, that was pretty messed up. And it's a funny thing. It is a funny thing, but
it's obviously an experience thing, isn't it? It's good to go through all those avenues. And like I've had a few questions from people before about how do you get on with a bass player or this, and I've gone, okay, well, elaborate to me what you mean. And one particular person was like, oh well, they never really want to be led at all, and they can't really lead themselves, and it's getting a bit awkward. And I'm like, okay, well, how many bass players have you played with? And they're like, oh well, only 2. I'm like, right, okay, well, for a start, what was the other person like?
Yeah,
because you've got a comparison of 2 there. Don't just personify this one person that's causing you a problem.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, if they're both quite similar, then you need to get out there and play with more. Yeah. Because then you'll learn how to deal with those people.
Yeah, this is it. Experience is everything.
Yeah, because those people that are currently like that to you are only...
This is it. Yeah, exactly. If your whole world is that one experience, that's not great. You need to have so many little experiences to draw from, so that that one experience that is causing you a bit of a problem or whatever, you can draw from everything else. You have a point of reference. You also recognize that if this doesn't work out, it's fine. There will be something else, because that's just how it works. Like, I truly believe that if you leave space for things, they present themselves. It's scary, and it's kind of like you might feel like you're in the middle of the ocean going, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But actually, interesting things happen when you allow yourself to not be crammed full of work, your head crammed full of songs, your body crammed full of stress or emotion or whatever, when you actually take a minute to exhale and just go, okay, cool, right, let's see let's see what happens. Really interesting things come up. That's I mean, like I say, it's just my experience, but I agree with you about that kind of having enough experience to give yourself some a different perspective and something to measure it against, because it is important. And just do more so that you have a better informed experience really in life.
Yeah, that's it. And going back to what they're saying about kind of like the amount of hours you do, I do feel like the approach of just doing the type of rehearsing that you want to do, the type of gigging you want to do, absorbing yourself within the industry and putting all that legwork in, are real term hours, opposed to turning around and going, right, I do 8 hours a day of this stuff, specific, like whether it's rudiments or power drills or anything, for me, okay, like you said as well, if your achievement, your goal is to be that machine of a player, then that's what you need to do. But I think that real term hours for a well-rounded musician is more important than spending half your life in on a kit on a rehearsal base or anything like that, really.
I always remember my dad saying to me when I was growing up, he said, look, you can be the greatest player in your bedroom, but doesn't mean anything. And that always stuck with me, and I was like, you're right. So yeah, I'm not an advocate for spending 8 hours a day in your bedroom practicing. I mean, like, I'm not saying don't practice, but yeah, I agree with you. It's being well-rounded, it's getting experience in all manner of different situations, because the other thing is, you might not know what feeds your soul until you do it. You might think it's this one thing, but then you might go and have a completely different experience, go, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, I want to do this. So you just gotta try it all, try all the genres you can, play with as many people as you can, in as many situations as you can. I've done stuff that I look back and I was like, crikey. We were talking about Thomas Lang. When I was 17, I supported Thomas Lang on a masterclass. I mean, that's pretty crazy as a 17-year-old, but I did it, and it was great fun. It was brilliant. Would I do it? No, but what I mean, it was just an experience. I knew that I didn't want to be a clinician, but I knew that I could do it. And it's just interesting. I think it's about getting experience in life as well. This is the other thing. It's music, it's creative. You need to live your life. This was something that I didn't understand when I was a kid. Like, in fact, into my mid-20s, my whole life was drums and drumming, and outside of that, very little existed. And whilst there is great merit in being obsessed with something and wanting to do it, and being that sort of single-minded, which is great in a lot of respects, actually, in terms of working as well, when you're on the road, it's all the other stuff that actually matters. It's things like experiencing life, it's having relationships, it's having hobbies, it's doing other stuff, things outside of music. My greatest times on tour with people is never talking about music. It's talking about food and cooking, or like going to a random place, or seeing some art, or just going for a walk, or having a coffee, putting the world to rights, all these things. My biggest fear, and I've had this where I've been on tour buses with, there was a particular gig, which I won't say who it was, but the musicians were quite freshly out of music college, like probably 3 or 4 years out of music college. And all they spoke about was music. And I was like, we've just played a gig, and it's the last thing I want to talk about. And then, listen to this and listen to that. I'm overloaded. I know I need silence, or I need to talk about anything else, and just please save me. And it wasn't the right environment for me. They were loving it. I was the odd one out, and that's fine too. Like, if that's you, that's fine. But I think there is a lot of merit of having other aspects of your life that will then inform your playing in any instrument, and inform your performance. And just, there's so many other factors that go into a creative life that are not about paradiddles.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, and I think creative is the key there as well. You know, like I come across a lot of people um, that are concerned about playing someone else's piece of music. You know, fundamentally, in my career, I believe that I it was only early on that I did writing really, or was involved with albums where I was composing drums for.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I see myself as you know, I'm a professional player that learns and portrays other people's composed parts
Yes.
live.
Love it.
And you want to put the nuances in on them.
Yeah.
And you want to keep the authenticity of the version that you're learning for said show or whatever. You know, it might not be the album, so it might not be that drum, but it might be an emulation of a last tour and they want it like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, but I also believe you can't get over obsessed with I'm not that last drummer, you know.
Yes.
So it's like you pay homage to what you need to, and
Yes.
you give the audience what they are looking for.
Yes.
But if you can't physically play it like someone else, then own it, you know, and still play it your way. You know, there's shows that people have stepped onto from me, and I'm a right-handed player, but I don't know where it's come from, but a little bit like Carl Brazil in the respect that some of my fills are left-handed led.
Brilliant. I love that about Carl. He's so funny like that.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's funny. It's like some of the songs that I've had to do that he actually recorded for Robbie and stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
I can do the fills really easily because I'm like, because I'm leading with my left. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I can do that. You know, but I've had to explain that to, I've had players come and go, oh, because I've just received the recordings.
Yeah.
And I've contacted me, go, oh, how are you doing this? I'm like, well.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's because I'm leading with my left. I said, but just don't sweat. Don't sweat the small stuff, you know.
Yeah.
That is at least the beauty of, you know, of percussion, in the respect that you can find another thing to fill the spot. It'll sound
This
nice.
is it. And I agree with you that there has to be a level of respect for what is there in terms of parts. Or what I love that you said was about the audience and their expectations. I can't tell you how important I find that for artists, but it's slightly different, because if an artist wants to do a song in a different way, that's their prerogative. But where it's most prominent for me is in covers gigs and function gigs. Like, to me, the audience is my number one priority. So I want to play that song exactly how you're expecting it to sound. I want you to remember the first time that you heard this song and you were like on a beach somewhere and you were like falling in love or whatever else. Like, I want to bring you back to that moment. And the only way that I feel we as a band are going to do that is by representing the song and honoring that. So my biggest pet peeve is like when covers bands are like, right, we're going to play this one faster, or and I'm like, no, we're going to play it as it's intended. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're meant to actually let these people have an enjoyable time. And it was really interesting as well when I came into work with The Darkness. I was replacing a drummer that had been there from the start, and me and Ed, we play very differently, but I knew that I had to respect him, his position, his parts, their fans, for what they're used to what they expect. So I wasn't going to come in and be like, hi, I'm Emily Dolan Davies and I'm going to play and you're going to have to get over it. It wasn't like that. It was like, no, right. Let me study his playing. Let me make sure that I am honoring that first and foremost, because I have so much respect for these songs and for these guys, obviously, and their audience. So that was my starting point. And then I sort of gradually brought in little elements of me to it, where he maybe would do a certain type of fill. Maybe I'd do my sort of type of fill that I would naturally do. And I find that really worked. But the fact that I love hearing you talk about it like that too, because I don't often hear musicians talking in that way. So I just really appreciate hearing you, because I get it. We are so singing from the same playbook in so many ways, I can't even tell you. But yeah, to me it's incredibly important too. So it's just nice to hear someone else talking about that sort of stuff in a similar way. It's lovely.
Yeah, because when I still kind of do it now, and I also advise to other people on it in the, like you say, the function circuit and whatever. And I always say to other people, if they get a function gig for the first time, say, or whatever, the main members of that band, or the band leader, so to speak, when they turn around and say, "Oh yeah, we play it to the record," take it with a pinch of salt.
Oh yeah.
Because the amount of times when I first started, I'd go, "Great,
yeah, I know that.
Lock that record in," and
Done.
I'd come in,
yeah.
and then it was literally like pushing the drum kit down the stairs, because they've added in another several bars because the MD is the guitarist and he wants to solo all the way through it, or they've changed this,
so annoying.
or it's now a false ending or whatever, and it's like, okay, right, that's fine. But don't tell me it's the record.
Yeah, don't lie to me. Don't like being lied to.
So if anyone ever says, "Oh yeah, it's to the record," I'm the first to roll my eyes and go, "All right, okay.
All right, let's see. I'll tell you if it's to the record once this is done."
Yeah, we shall see. Oh, brilliant. Right, so do we have any more questions? We got one more, but we technically answered this, but I'll put it into question form anyway. So Jason Reed from Ireland, and Jason has asked, so yeah, we've definitely answered this, but we'll touch base on it again.
Yeah.
What do you believe is the best way to network for professional gigs these days?
Oh, okay. So Jason Reed, thank you very much for your question. Right. I guess we've touched on this, but we haven't delved into this.
No.
So networking for a professional gig. Do all the things, basically, just get out there. I know that in this world of technology and the internet and all of that, it's very easy to think, because I was like this. So let's go back, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. I thought I could circumvent going out and actually meeting people. I suffered a lot with social anxiety at the time. I sort of was playing in originals bands, but to me it wasn't like good enough to go up to someone when they say, "Oh, so what are you up to?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'm doing nothing, I'm actually not very good, and I don't want you to find me out, and oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." So I was trying to find any way possible to not get out and just meet people. So I would be using all the websites, looking on Gumtree for gigs, looking on Star Now for gigs, just whatever I could to basically go, "Oh God, do I really have to go out?" As it turns out, yes, you do. And actually, just going out to shows, going out to jams was a massive one, meeting other musicians, going out to trade shows, even drum shows. A lot of my gigs have come from other drummers recommending me because they got asked to do the gig and they couldn't do it, and they'll call me. Obviously Voice Kids is an example, because Ash was one of the people who's like, "Yeah, just get Emily to do it, that's a great idea." So and the other thing is like playing with lots of people, as many different people as you can, and that includes playing, and this may not sound very popular and I apologize in advance, including playing gigs for free. The first 10 years of my career, probably longer, the majority of gigs I was doing was playing for free, but those gigs led to professional gigs down the line. And sometimes those relationships, I would have known that person for 5-10 years before it came back around, but they always come back around in some way or another. It's really interesting to kind of see. So to me, it was all about sort of planting seeds and just kind of creating connections, staying in touch with people, no matter what if it was a gig that I was doing for free, I don't care. I'm going to do the very best job I can. I'm going to rock up like a professional, because in my head, I am a professional and I want you to hire me later on down the line, or whatever else that looks like. Because, no one person is an island, and musicians know everyone. And once you're on the circuit a little bit, it's just like you understand that, oh my gosh, all of us have mutual friends. I'm sure that me and you, for instance, have many mutual friends, like Carl Brazil being one of them, for instance. And you're up in Birmingham, aren't you? So I'm sure there's a few others. I'm almost certain that there's a few people that we know in common just in Brum. But it's about, like I say, it's a funny one, the sort of word networking, and it's a bit of a buzzword because I often have had younger people coming up to me and go, I remember this one kid, I love him to bits. I wish I could remember his name. He came up to me after I did this masterclass thing and he said, "Oh, hi, Emily. So I'd love to network with you sometime." And I was like, I don't even understand the sentence that has just come out of your mouth. And I was like, okay, right. First of all, never say that sentence ever again because it's weird, it doesn't make sense, and it feels quite creepy, if I'm honest. I said, look, networking is friendships. That's all it is. And if you meet someone and you get on with them, strike up a friendship, keep in touch, go to their gigs, go to jam nights with them, just chat, no agenda, not trying to get me on a gig, get me on a gig, none of that. It's not what it's about, because what you start to realize as you get older is that all the people that are doing gigs or are the musical director on a gigs or booking musicians on gigs, their number one people that they're going to go to are their mates, because we all want to have a laugh. We want to have a laugh on tour. We want to, every gig I've been on, like in the last, I don't know, 15 years, have been mates, and like, or I've gotten in because I'm mates with someone, and it's just like, cool, all right, let's have a laugh. And it's about finding your people. It's about finding people that see music the similar way that you do, have the same sort of work ethic that you do, value similar things, and the more people that you meet, the more you will find your people, and therefore you'll end up on a fun tour. And like I said before, I've ended up on tours where I was not the person. I was our personalities. We got on, we did the job. I did the job, but I wouldn't have hung out with these people. Like, they were lovely, they were fine, but no. Whereas now I'm like, oh, it's great. I love all the people I work with. But that has come from years of just hanging out and going to gigs and chatting and creating friendships. And like I say, years, I have never, I should say, met someone one night and the next day they're calling me going, oh, I've got this gig for you. Like, it's not how it goes. It's long term. It's going for lots of coffees. It's sharing drinks. It's watching bands. It's going to jam nights. It's listening to music together. It's all those things. And it should be fun, and it should be creating those relationships. And it's the same with endorsements as well. A lot of people ask me about endorsements. Now, I'm endorsed by Zildjian, Vic Firth, Remo, Yamaha. All those companies have known me since I was 12 years old, when I was going to the drum shows, and I just went and introduced myself. Not to say, hi, I'm Emily, I'm a drummer, can you give me something free? No. It was just, hi, I'm Emily, I'm a drummer, I love your stuff. And I created one-on-one friendships with the people that worked at these companies, to the point that I remember distinctly when I was 19, I was at a Zildjian do. Now, I wasn't a Zildjian artist. Charisse was my friend that I grew up with. So I was kind of coming along as her plus one. I kind of felt like I'd sort of gone under the radar, and I was like, again, this imposter in this situation. I mean, I knew most of the drummers there anyway, so I was just chatting away to people. But anyway, the A&R for Zildjian at the time, Tina Clark, came up to me and she was like, Emily, I've just realised you're not actually part of the Zildjian family yet. And I was like, yeah, I know, I'm a bit of an imposter, I'm so sorry. And she was like, oh, no, we need to sort that out. Like, come down to Sunningdale literally next week, we're going to sort you out, we're going to give you some symbols. I'm so sorry, I can't, but you're already part of the family. Like, and it was that kind of approach, and it was just like, oh wow, like, I'm already part of the family. Like, that's such a, but it wasn't like a, oh, I give you free stuff. It was this natural, organic relationship that it was like, why are you not part of this family? This is ridiculous, let's sort that out. So again, it's kind of that slow burn, and I know I'm guilty of this as well. Patience is not my strong suit, but unfortunately things do just take time. So in that time, spend it wisely, sow loads of seeds, meet loads of people, put yourself in interesting situations, go to different styles of gigs, you know, look up and see who needs a drummer. Also, depping for people is a great thing. I think a huge part of my career was built on becoming sort of the last minute dep girl. People would just call me on the day of a show and their drummer suddenly, you know, I don't know, their car broke down or they got sick or whatever. Like, can you come and do a show tonight? And I'm like, yeah, I can come do a show tonight. So I made sure that all my skill sets were at a level that I could do that. I could learn a set in an afternoon and go do the gig. So doing that just was really useful. But again, it's learning skills that are in line with what you're trying to do rather than just abstractly learning how to chart, for instance. And yeah, so I think it's just about meeting as many people as you can. But then we also have social media, which let's not discount that, because it does have value. And as I say, for me personally, it's a really good way to introduce myself to people, for people to get to know me. But it's an addendum to having physical friendships with people outside of the social media world. It's a great way to kind of get started and you know, for people to find you. But do not underestimate the power of going out and shaking hands with people. It's everything, plus time, lots of time.
Yeah. And as you mentioned about the social media thing, it's also how you do it, isn't it? You know, it's very evident to me that you do your social media almost the same way in which you'd go out and meet people. Nothing's thrown down anyone's throat. You're not going, I'm an influencer, I do this and that and that. It's just hey, here's me.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Literally.
And you either connect with that person or you don't. And that's a network, surely. You know, that's like, you know, some of the gigs that I've had is so the one that I'm now the busiest with for the end of this year. Last year, a friend, I run a Jamiroquai tribute called Space Cowboy, and someone put me in touch with someone that I needed to cover for a singer. So I got this girl Jess in, and she did the job, and we got on really well, and kept touch with whatnot, and booked her on a few shows. Anyway, 6 months later or whatever, she rings me and goes, do you know any drummers that are available this Saturday? It was Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you've just called one. And she's like, yeah, I know, but you're busy all the time, aren't you? I went, no, I'm available this weekend. And she went, oh, okay, can you learn the Fast Love theatre set, the George Michael one?
Oh, wicked,
for Saturday. I was like, okay. So sent it all through and you know, but that is also another one where, I went in, I did the job nicely and stuff, but I got on with everybody.
Yes.
That's the point, you know. I got on with everybody, and it does now mean that I'm still second chair on that gig. There's Seb who's got the gig, and he's a lovely player and he's brilliant. But it does mean that I now get first refusal for whenever he can't. You know, he needs to step off.
That's it. And also, if Seb has other gigs that he can't do, he knows that he can trust you. Yeah. Because you've come in and you've nailed that. And it's the same with everyone else on that gig. Like you've just expanded your network by, say, 6 people by doing one show. To me, or 5 people, not including Jess. But yeah, to me, that's everything. And that was a big focus for me it still is, I suppose. But if there's someone new in a room that I don't know, or if there's a gig with new people, oh my God, where do I sign up? I just want to meet all the people. And I think that's another thing, is learning how to talk to people is quite a thing. And I think social anxiety was a big thing for me growing up. I'm a lot better now. But how I used to combat that, and hopefully this will help some of your students, is I would ask people about themselves. I would never want to talk about myself because I didn't like having any sort of attention on myself ever. To a degree, I know this sounds stupid because I'm being interviewed by you right now. To a degree, I feel the same. If there's a room full of people, if it's more than just one-on-one, I get really shy. I get really awkward. I find myself in that situation more often than not. But one-on-one, before I'd be the same, I'd just be so super shy. I'd never want to talk about, please don't ask me what I'm up to, because I don't feel like I'm doing anything and I'm not doing enough and I'm not worthy to even be talking to you right now. So what I would do instead is I would just ask them about them. I would ask them what they've been up to, you know, and just go down that route, which gave me a lot of peace. But also, as it turns out, it's a really nice way to get to learn about people and to build a friendship. And it would make me more comfortable so that when they eventually did ask you, oh, what have you been up to? It would make me feel a little more relaxed because I sort of felt like I knew them a little more. So I think it is, if you do suffer with any sort of social anxiety or anything like that, it's good to have a kind of, not a playbook, but, you know, a go-to method of making yourself feel as comfortable as you can be. And gradually, if you can normalize the sort of social situation of introducing yourself to a stranger, or maybe even someone that you look up to, which obviously is difficult in itself, the more you do it, the more normalized it will become. And once you can kind of get past that hump, which will happen, the more, like, just do it loads. It's the same with everything in life. If you just do it so much that it's like, oh no, this is my new baseline. I mean, that's my aim. That's my aim with anything that scares me. I'm just like, cool, I'm scared of this. I need to normalize it. And yeah, I suppose that was one of my first sort of experiences of that in terms of being a professional musician. And now it's great because I truly believe I could talk to anyone. I understand how, I don't know, I mean, obviously I'm sure there are some people that I would struggle with, but I think I'm all right at chatting to people, I think. But it's just a really useful skill. It's a really useful skill, and it's such a huge part of networking and building a career. There's no way around it. So just lean into it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I have the same social anxieties, probably still to this day, going in and speaking with people. But not only does the talking to them about them approach help be a buffer to make you ready to reciprocate, I also then find that it's also a humble technique as well. You know, it's like you're asking them, you want to know about them.
Plus I'm fascinated by people, like just generally I'm fascinated. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like for me, I'm definitely more of a listener than a talker anyway. So if I can,
I love that both of us are saying that, and yet we've both been talking to each other for the last whatever it is 2.5 hours. It's so funny.
But that's then I'd like to say that's the interest of a good connection as well. You know,
that's true.
And as we, you know, as I addressed it to you before this conversation, you know, and never lean in too much on these with everybody and say it's an interview, because we're just having a conversation and basically getting knowledge out of our own heads of what we know and what we've felt and what we've experienced. And if that can help other people learn from our own pitfalls in a way. You know, absolutely. Going back to the earlier thing of experience is key.
Absolutely, it's everything. It's everything.
You know, and no matter what personality you are, all the situations and scenarios are still the same.
It's true. And also remember that you're not the only one that's going to be feeling that social anxiety. And actually, the majority of musicians that I know suffer with social anxiety, or they're sort of somewhere on the autism scale, or they have ADHD, or they, you know, we all have our quirks. We all do, and they manifest themselves in different ways. And if you can reframe stuff, that's the other thing that I do. I try and reframe it that I'm feeling awkward about talking to someone, but they might be feeling really isolated right now or really awkward. So by me going to talk to them, maybe that will make them feel a little more settled. So that's a nice thing to do. So let me just go do that for that reason. And therefore it takes away the sort of obsessing that I have over myself and looking stupid or whatever. And I think, do you know what? Even if I do look stupid, at least if it gives someone else confidence or make someone else feel more comfortable, then it's worth it. I don't care if I look stupid. I do that a lot, actually, when I'm out, like, for instance, I'm going to this wedding next week, and dancing. I'm not a particularly good dancer, right? I can dance in time, but I'm not great. But I just think, do you know what? I'm going to go on the dance floor, because if my stupid dancing gives someone else the confidence to get up and dance to and have fun, then yes, I've won. Let's do it. Let's go look stupid and just go dance like whatever, you know what I mean? So it's an interesting exercise in kind of reframing things in a way that works for your brain, to almost trick it into doing what you actually want it to do, but just change the parameters, change the focus, think about things from other people's perspective, not in a way of judging you or anything like that, but just in how they may be feeling. You know, it's very easy to focus so harshly on ourselves and how we're feeling about a situation, and you forget that the majority of people are feeling a similar type of way. And if you can kind of find that commonality, there's something really powerful about that. And again, it's just creating friendship and connection with other people, and just, I don't know, it's really valuable, and I really like it. I just love people and stories and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, to connect it full circle to that question, there is no difference between network and friendship, because your friendships are your network.
100%. So perfectly said, so succinctly, so much more coherently than I just have for the last however long.
I will never be able to do that ever again.
Well, I'm glad I was here for it, because that was perfect. Love it. Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Done. Tick. Question answered.
Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic. I think we've probably put the world to rights.
I think we have. I think we've done a bang up job there.
that's all. Everybody's questions answered, which is fantastic.
Great. Thank you to everyone for the questions as well. Good questions.
There were some great ones in there, weren't there? Yeah, and thank you ever so much for doing this, Emily. It's been brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure just getting to chat with you, and like you say, put the world to rights. It's always a nice thing. So thank you for having me. I feel very grateful.
It's been very good, and thank you very much. I hope everybody watching has enjoyed this and got a load of tidbits out of it, as the two of us were ranting away. But it's all good. It's all good fun, and it's all positive stuff, and hopefully you're happy with the answers that we've given to your questions. And we'll sign off for now, but thank you for watching, and see you on the next one. Thank you, Emily, and take care.
Thank you. See you later, guys. Bye.